Chapter 1345. No one in Fantasy Town was prepared for the arrival of the Mountain of Eternity. As far as they knew, the sovereign with the special god crystal was trapped in the Beast King prison, but it would take at least 1,000 years for him to descend. Why was the Mountain of Eternity here now? Was there a mistake in the information? That shouldn't be the case. Just as everyone was dumbfounded, their faces were suddenly filled with astonishment. Could it be Lin Jun? Everyone looked at the sovereign's heavenly steel and was shocked to find that Lin Jun's ranking had risen to 3rd place. Black Flame's ranking had completely disappeared. He was dead. The sovereign was dead. Lin Jun being able to fight against the sovereign was already shocking enough, but he actually killed the sovereign. Was there any hope of snatching the sovereign's god crystal from such a person? The 100-fold cultivation point in Fantasy Town was once again enveloped by the lotus space. It seemed that Lin Jun had returned, but this time, no one disturbed Lin Jun's cultivation. As long as Lin Jun was here, no one would be able to snatch the sovereign's god crystal. This was the consensus of everyone. A day passed like this, until the Mountain of Eternity arrived above Fantasy Town. The top 30 of the Heavenly Steel were automatically transported to the Mountain of Eternity, including Jin Jiao, West Wind, Kai Qing, and the others. They all walked over listlessly. After entering the Mountain of Eternity, they could vaguely sense the existence of the fire element god crystal at the top of the mountain. They also saw Lin Jun. Lin Jun had already started climbing the mountain. This is Lin Jun's specialty. I hope he immediately cultivates after obtaining the god crystal and becomes a sovereign. Then, he'll immediately get the hell out of Fantasy Town. Jin Jiao sat at the foot of the mountain dejectedly. He had no intention of climbing the mountain. West Wind also sat down. Whoever wants to go can go. I'm not going. If I go, I may be chased out by Lin Jun again. Kai Qing also leaned against a place and didn't move. Let's wait. None of us will have a chance. With a few of them leading the way, the rest of the raiders gave up as well. All of them lay on the ground and watched Lin Jun climb the mountain alone. Only a pseudo-dominator ranked 30th chose to climb up. This pseudo-dominator wasn't a member of the Marauders. Originally, there weren't any other pseudo-dominators in the top 30, but Lin Jun had come and eliminated Black Flame. Thus, another pseudo-dominator took the opportunity to enter the top 30. At first, Jin Jiao and the others didn't notice him. He was Black Earth, and he was the 30th ranked. Seeing him climb up the sovereign, that brat called, "Hey, too. Are you courting death? Do you really think that Lin Jun will give you the ruler god crystal? Don't forget that Lin Jun obtained this divine crystal by killing the sovereign of Midnight Snack. If you try to pull a tooth out of the tiger's mouth, aren't you just looking for trouble?" The sovereign turned around and laughed. "I'm not going to steal it. I'm just going to see it. Lin Jun is my idol. I believe he won't casually kill people. TCH, childish. Idiot. Lin Jun won't even spit out the bones, let alone kill people. That's true. When have you ever seen a black hole beast eat people and spit out bones?" The plunderers below laughed without restraint. None of them moved. The sovereign called Black Earth ignored their mockery. As a sovereign, being able to see a sovereign god crystal was a kind of experience. He didn't want to miss this opportunity. In reality, to be able to enter the top 30 after the plunderers, Black Earth's strength was extremely outstanding. Even in the era of old ancestor Golden Rock, Black Earth was able to enter the top 15. Lin Jun turned around and saw this Black Earth, but he didn't care. He continued to climb quickly. Because there were no other people causing trouble, Lin Jun quickly reached the peak of Eternal Mountain. Here, Lin Jun stopped in his tracks. His lips curled into a cold smile. So they're here. At the peak of the Mountain of Eternity, there were 2 people standing next to the floating fire-type Chief Sovereign's godly crystal. Both of them were handsome, like gods. One was dressed in gold, the other in silver. Huge rainbow-colored wings flapped lightly behind their backs. As they flapped, air currents surged and strange scenes appeared. It made people want to prostrate themselves in worship. Furthermore, the 2 of them had extremely rich light energy, and the pure light element added to their sacred feeling. These appearances might not mean much to Lin Jun, but the most important thing was that both of them possessed power that was even greater than midnight snacks. They were two sovereigns of light. Without question, their appearance here had to be related to Midnight Snack's conversation with the Sovereign of Light before he died. Their goal was obvious. It was to prevent Lin Jun from obtaining the Sovereign God Crystal. Seeing Lin Jun reach the peak, the silver-robed Saint Angel sized up Lin Jun. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from a distant alternate dimension. Lin Jun, if you don't want to die, hurry up and leave. In the future, all of Eternal Mountain's sovereign god crystals will have nothing to do with you. Lin Jun's face carried a hint of anger. Preventing a sovereign from obtaining a sovereign god crystal? Is this how you sovereigns do things? If you do this, how can there be any fairness in this world? Haha, you think you're fit to talk about fairness with us? You really don't know what you're talking about. The Angel of Light didn't speak. It was Saint Angel who spoke to Lin Jun. Lin Jun, remember this. It is the sovereigns who decide the balance of power in this universe. Our words are justice, axiom, and destiny. Someone like you will never have the right to say no. Lin Jun's expression grew colder. What an unreasonable destiny. Reason is for people of the same level. Even if I explain it to you, I don't think you'll understand. The smile on Saint Angel's face became more and more disdainful. I'm willing to say these words to you because you once killed the Night Owl. Also, you have to feel that the Eternal Mountain has fallen into an illusion. Otherwise, what you just said will be your last words. Saint Angel's words were extremely lofty. Coupled with his sovereign godly power, ordinary sovereigns might really lose their confidence at his words. But Lin Jun had once killed a sovereign with his own hands. How could he be frightened by few words? What if I say no? Then it's a pity. Lin Jun, you can only scram back to Fantasy Town. Saint Angel extended his hand and pointed at Lin Jun. Dazzling holy light began to bloom. Anyone who opposes light. The Angel of Light finally raised his hand, and a powerful ball of light burst forth from his palm. All shall be destroyed. Chapter 1346. The greatest characteristic of the second Holy Angel's move was that there was no way to dodge it. The light element could illuminate the surrounding space. With the two sovereigns joining hands, the light element covered the entire area. In other words, no matter where he went, he would be attacked by the light. Since there was nowhere to hide, Lin Jun didn't want to hide. Although Yi Xiao was a sovereign, he should be a weakling among sovereigns. As for the two sovereigns of light in front of him, although they weren't among the top, they still had the strength of a middle-class sovereign. Facing such people, Lin Jun wanted to test his strength. He wanted to see just how much of a difference there was between him and these middle-class sovereigns. The mysterious yellow pagoda appeared above his head, blocking a portion of the light's power. Then, Lin Jun waved his hands. Thunder Fiend. The heavenly fiend death energy combined with the thunder within Lin Jun's body formed a waterfall-like shockwave that collided with the endless light. As the lightning flashed, Lin Jun stepped onto the Eternal Mountain. Suddenly, his feet sank 3 inches. Immovable mountain. His martial intent opened. His godly power was pushed to the limit. With 100% godly power utilization, more than 70 million godly power erupted. Lin Jun's absolute godly power surpassed Yi Xiao's. Even compared to the second Holy Angel, it wasn't much inferior. Combined with his godly power utilization, Lin Jun determined that his godly power was similar to the Holy Angels, but slightly inferior to the Angel of Gods. However, the two sovereigns didn't think too highly of Lin Jun and didn't attack with their full strength. They also didn't expect Lin Jun to be so tyrannical. Thus, their combined attack was actually blocked by Lin Jun alone. He too, who came up later, saw this scene. The two sovereigns joined hands to attack Lin Jun. The 3 of them were in a standoff. As for the sovereign god crystal, it was floating there all by itself. No one was interested in it. At this moment, He too made a somewhat rash decision. He planned to use his meager strength to help Lin Jun. 2 sovereigns bullying a pseudo-sovereign. This made him feel indignant. But just as Black Soil was about to attack, Lin Jun's gravity suddenly exploded. It wrapped around the ruler god crystal and threw it into Black Soil's hands. "Thank you, brother. This divine crystal is yours. Hurry up and leave." Even in his dreams, He-Tu didn't expect such a huge gift bag to fall into his hands from the sky. He held the ruler's god crystal and was stunned. "Hurry up and leave." Lin Jun didn't have any other choice. He definitely wouldn't be able to obtain this divine crystal. Moreover, the marauders at the foot of the mountain would soon know about the situation here. He estimated that they would come up in a moment. At that time, no matter who the divine crystal fell into, it was not a situation that Lin Jun wanted to see. Rather than that, he might as well give it to this unknown quasi-dominator. At the very least, this person's character was to Lin Jun's liking. He-Tu wasn't an indecisive person. He quickly realized that even if Lin Jun died here, he would only lose half of his points. The ruler's god crystal, on the other hand, was an important matter that couldn't be delayed. "Thank you, Brother Lin. We still have a long way to go." He-Tu turned around and left the Eternal Mountain. He directly went to Fantasy Town to fuse with the Divine Crystal. The stalemate between Lin Jun and the two divine angels could only last until here. The two divine angels felt that they had lost face. They combined their strength and used their immense divine power to forcibly send Lin Jun flying. Although the baleful chi of death was powerful, when the other party was prepared and their divine power far surpassed Lin Jun's, the baleful chi of death couldn't display its power. Moreover, Lin Jun didn't plan to fight to the death with the two here. Unless he used the three baleful armor-piercing divine thunders, he wouldn't be a match for them. It was best not to use that trump card. Therefore, Lin Jun only used the lotus to protect himself. He didn't want to be killed by the two and left the Eternal Mountain. Now that the ruler's god crystal had been taken, the Eternal Mountain didn't continue to stay in Fantasy Town. It immediately broke through space and left. Even the two rulers couldn't stop it. It came in a hurry and left in a hurry. At the foot of the mountain, Jin Jiao and the others were still looking at the strong light at the top of the mountain in shock. They were guessing what had happened when they saw the sacred mountain fly away and disappear into the universe. What's going on? Could it be that Lin Jun succeeded? Why is there a battle at the top of the mountain? Could it be that Lin Jun and He-Tu are fighting? That shouldn't be. He-Tu can't possibly be a match for Lin Jun. This commotion seems to be caused by the rulers. Strange, they saw Lin Jun leave the Eternal Mountain and return to the 100-fold cultivation spot. After that, he went into seclusion and didn't come out. This matter ended with a strong start and a weak finish. That night, when He-Tu broke through to become a ruler, they received news from their sect. At this point, Jin Jiao and the others were pounding their chests in regret. It turned out that there was a ruler expert at the top of the mountain who was attacking Lin Jun. This proved that Lin Jun had no hope of obtaining the God Crystal. If they had known this, they would have followed him to the Eternal Mountain. They might have been able to pick up some scraps. However, this also gave them an opportunity. If Lin Jun had no chance, their next chance would come. The asterisk M in it. We've miscalculated this time. Lin Jun killed He-Tu too suddenly and allowed He-Tu to sneak into the top 30. This time, apart from Lin Jun, the rest of the top 30 are all occupied by us plunderers. We can't give anyone else a chance to sneak in. That's right. This way, the next God Crystal will definitely be produced among us. The plunderers quickly reached a consensus. Lin Jun's points were almost unshakable. He was ranked 3rd and wouldn't be squeezed out of the top 30 no matter what. As long as the other 29 people were plunderers, that would be enough. Looking at He-Tu, who had joined him in the dimensional universe, Lin Jun smiled. Although he didn't obtain the ruler god crystal this time, Lin Jun didn't regret anything. It was good that He-Tu had obtained it. With this, he now had 2 rulers as friends. One was Steam Bun, and the other was Hey Tuesday. These 2 people might be of help to him in the future. What Lin Jun was truly worried about was the date of the next mountain of Eternity's descent. Based on the plunderer's behavior, he knew that the next ruler god crystal wouldn't be simple. Otherwise, it wouldn't have attracted so many people. Seeing that the top 30 of the Celestial Monument have been occupied by plunderers, Lin Jun had some thoughts. The next sovereign's godly crystal was of utmost importance, but with the sovereign guarding it, what was he supposed to do? After thinking for a while, Lin Jun cast aside his chaotic thoughts and took out the countercurrent disc. No matter what, he had to spend a lot of time studying time reversal. Lin Jun didn't forget his goal in staying here, which was to revive Sunflower Scar. This woman who had saved him couldn't be allowed to stay in the eternal ice domain forever. Using the lotus flower to seal the space around him, Lin Jun began a new round of cultivation. Chapter 1347. Dreamscape Town returned to its peaceful state. Lin Jun went into seclusion and did not come out. The raiders, on the other hand, gathered together to cultivate. Although they weren't a match for Lin Jun, even if they joined forces, they felt a sense of security. Even if Lin Jun decided to act against them, they would all be eliminated, and their rankings would remain unchanged. As for the other quasi-sovereigns training in Dreamscape Town, they gradually became targets for them to earn points from. As time passed, the gap between them gradually widened. After Lin Jun had been in seclusion for 1,000 years, Lin Jun's ranking had fallen to 9th place. The top 30 had formed a group, leaving the rest far behind them. The former 2nd place, Sunflower Scar, was now ranked 31st. However, there was still a large gap between him and the top 30. Even if the top 30 had been eliminated twice, there was no way Sunflower Scar would surpass him. This sort of ranking made them feel safe. Now, they just had to wait for the Mountain of Eternity to descend once more and for the special divine crystals to arrive. Within the Radiant Kingdom, the Chief Sovereign of Light was currently observing the situation at the Mountain of Eternity. The 2 holy angels by his side said unhappily, "Master, this time, that Lin Jun really got off too easy. The 2 of us were a bit careless. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't have been a match for the 2 of us. His points have definitely dropped by quite a bit." The Chief Sovereign of Light, Tian Xiao, waved his hand. "It's not your fault. Even if I were to face off against Lin Jun, the result would probably be the same. Who would have thought that a quasi-sovereign would be able to train to such a level? This is human nature." "Master, do you think Lin Jun will leave Dreamscape Town?" the holy angels asked. The Chief Sovereign of Light waved his hand. "He won't." The 2 angels were startled. On their way back, they had already discussed Lin Jun's situation. As they saw it, Lin Jun definitely wouldn't have another chance to acquire divine crystals. He shouldn't have chosen to continue staying in Dreamscape Town. Most likely, he would have gone to the even more dangerous Beast King prison in search of other opportunities. But for the Chief Sovereign of Light to say so decisively and decisively that he wouldn't, this was beyond their expectations. The Chief Sovereign of Light laughed as he dispelled their doubts. "The reason is quite simple. I imagine you've all seen what happened outside the Town of Illusions. That woman he sealed within space. I saw her. She's an extremely beautiful woman. She even attracted the attention of many sovereigns in the past. It's truly rare for a woman to be able to cultivate to such a level on her own. Yes, that's Sunflower Scar. Back then, I even wanted to find her and make her the saintess of the Kingdom of Light. Unfortunately, the Dominus of Light shook his head and returned to the topic at hand. He said, Lin Jun's objective for staying in Mirage Town is very simple. To cultivate time reversal and revive Sunflower Scar. Ah, how is that possible? Holy Angel was shocked. None of them had expected Lin Jun to be so ambitious. But was time reversal something a pseudo-ruler could do? Even the ruler of light, sitting on the divine throne of light, couldn't do it. The chief sovereign of light chuckled. You are correct. I am unable to reverse time, but I do know the secrets behind it. The holy angel listened attentively. This was an enormous secret. Lin Jun truly is cultivating in the laws of time. He's already exchanged for 2 items that contain the laws of time. His progress is probably not bad. Just based on the fact that he was able to make Sunflower Scar's space eternally stable. You can see that. Then, Master, why aren't you going to stop him? The 2 angels were rather anxious. Haha, what's the rush? Time reversal has a prerequisite. When using it, one needs 100 million units of divine power. Tell me, given this prerequisite, will Lin Jun be able to succeed? The 2 of them were both startled. then sank into deep thought. Very quickly, they came to the conclusion that it was impossible. Lin Jun's power had already reached the peak of the high god level. There was no way for him to increase his divine power. They had exchanged blows with Lin Jun before. Lin Jun's divine power was roughly 70 million units. This was already inconceivable. There was no way he could increase it any further. If he couldn't increase his divine power, then no matter how hard Lin Jun tried, he wouldn't be able to reverse time. The only way to increase his divine power was to become a chief sovereign. But with the two of them present, how could Lin Jun possibly obtain a chief sovereign's divine crystal? If he didn't obtain the divine crystal and increase his divine power, he wouldn't be able to revive Sunflower Scar. If he didn't revive Sunflower Scar, he wouldn't be able to leave. This was an endless cycle. Soon, Holy Angel's eyes lit up. Master, doesn't that mean that Lin Jun will be stuck in Mirage Town forever? The chief sovereign of light laughed and nodded. Exactly. I've already discussed this with many other chief sovereigns. None of them have any objections. Even Lin Jun's not yet official teacher, Lonely Star Fisherman, didn't say anything. Clearly, he has tacitly agreed. So long as the two of you guard the Mountain of Eternity to the death and prevent Lin Jun from obtaining the divine crystal, that will be enough. After speaking, the chief sovereign of light rose to his feet, staring at his vast divine kingdom. Lin Jun, the most powerful genius since the birth of the universe. What a pity. He will have to stay there forever, accompanying that unmoving woman. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Lin Jun's cultivation was a rather long process. With 100 times cultivation points acceleration, Lin Jun finally understood the principles behind time reversal after 1,000 years. One must know that Lin Jun's one day here was equivalent to 4 years. Moreover, Lin Jun had been strengthened by the universe's origin power 3 times. His comprehension and calculation abilities were 10,000 times better than an ordinary person's. One day of cultivation for him was equivalent to 40,000 years of cultivation for an ordinary person. 1 year of cultivation for him was equivalent to 6 million years of cultivation for an ordinary person. 1,000 years of cultivation for him was equivalent to 6 billion years of cultivation for an ordinary person. Cultivating the law of time reversal was just that difficult. Moreover, without the foundation of time acceleration, deceleration, and stillness, it was impossible to cultivate time reversal. Hence, it was hailed as the most difficult law. Moreover, even at this point, it still wasn't the final success. Grasping the principles didn't mean that he could actually do it. When it was time to put it into practice, Lin Jun realized that he would need an extremely huge amount of godly power to activate time reversal. However, his godly power wasn't enough. Somewhat indignant, Lin Jun experimented a few times, but the results were the same. However, he also obtained a number. If he wanted to use time reversal, his godly power gap was close to 30 million. Currently, Lin Jun's maximum godly power was 72 million. With a gap of close to 30 million, it meant that he would need 100 million godly power to use time reversal. This discovery made Lin Jun feel rather dejected. 100 million godly power. Ordinary lower-middle sovereigns didn't have such strength. Even the angel of God he had seen previously only had about 80 million godly power. Perhaps only those special sovereigns and honorable sovereigns could achieve that. However, he had already cultivated the law of time reversal. Since he had already reached this stage, how could Lin Jun accept failure? Chapter 1348. After experimenting a few times, Lin Jun decided to stop for the time being. Indeed, he didn't have enough divine power. 100 million divine power was too difficult to achieve. Chris, is there any way for me to increase my divine power a bit more? Crazy, who was usually quick at calculating things, was in a bit of a pickle. After a while, Crazy finally replied to Lin Jun. Master, your realm has reached the limit of normal cultivation. You can only improve your battle skills, but you can't increase your divine power. If it was before, you could use the Sovereign's elixir to increase your divine power by 60%. but you've already used it 3 times, so you can only increase it by 40%. Lin Jun calculated. He currently had 72 million divine power. After increasing it by 40%, his divine power would reach 98,280,000. He was still a bit away from 100 million, which made Lin Jun feel a bit irritated. Seeing that he had reached this step, could it be that he was going to stop? However, Lin Jun was never one to admit defeat. He didn't believe that he couldn't find a way to increase his power. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. Lin Jun suddenly said, "Patriarch Golden Rock." He remembered that when he fought with Patriarch Golden Rock, this guy had forcefully increased his divine power and used the Wisdom Fist seal. That should be a secret technique that burned the divine body to increase divine power. Lin Jun didn't know what secret technique Patriarch Golden Rock used, but he could learn it himself. Lin Jun immediately opened the merchant shop in the dimensional universe and looked for similar techniques. With Chris's authority, Lin Jun could buy almost all kinds of takeout secret methods. Soon, Lin Jun locked onto a technique. Beast Emperor Technique. This was one of the highest level cultivation techniques of the astral beasts. It specialized in burning the divine body to increase divine power. A sovereign could only buy one of these techniques. Lin Jun had the authority of the 100-bird sovereign, so he could buy it. Although it required a lot of tri points, Lin Jun had obtained many treasures during this period of time. In particular, he had obtained several decent equipment from killing the night owl. He might as well donate them all and exchange them for the Beast Emperor technique. Master, you're quite decisive. After buying this sovereign battle skill, I can't buy any more sovereign battle skills. After all, the sovereign of 100 birds is dead, and I can't break my own record. So this is the last one. If you want to get more sovereign battle skills, you'll have to become a sovereign yourself and live to comprehend them. Lin Jun waved his hand. It doesn't matter. Privileges are meant to be used. Only by using them will they have value. I don't think anyone knew that I had the ability to purchase such a cultivation technique. After obtaining the Beast Emperor technique, Lin Jun immediately started learning it. The entry requirements for the Beast Emperor secret art were quite harsh. Only the strongest astral beasts could use it. The golden rock was a Koan Peng, so he could use it. Lin Jun was a black hole beast, so he could use it. If he couldn't meet this basic requirement, the Beast Emperor technique would be useless. The cultivation technique that burned divine power wasn't complicated. In fact, it was much simpler than the other sovereign battle skills. The Beast Emperor technique was split into 5 levels. The first level burned 20% of a user's divine body, increasing divine power by 20%. The second level burned 40%, increasing divine power by 40%, and so on and so forth. After reaching the 5th level, it burned 99% of a user's divine body, increasing divine power by 100%. That 1% was kept so that the user wouldn't die on the spot. If the user couldn't succeed in a single strike, they could only wait for death. In battle, the Beast Emperor technique wasn't particularly useful, especially in group battles. It increased one's power, but decreased one's divine body, increasing the risk of death. However, in a one-on-one battle, this was undoubtedly a god-tier cultivation method. Lin Jun didn't need to comprehend it too deeply. As long as he learned the first level and used it with the Sovereign's elixir, his divine power would surpass 100 million. Another 1,000 years have passed. The mountain of eternity is about to descend. I need to act quickly. Lin Jun glanced outside his green lotus space. He could vaguely hear some restless voices. It seemed that the people outside had received some insider information. Temporarily putting aside those distracting thoughts, Lin Jun began to focus on cultivating the Beast Emperor technique. Since the birth of the universe, the most mysterious and dangerous place was the Beast King prison. This was the place where all the fiendish aura gathered. All the creatures that lived here would have their brains invaded by the fiendish aura for a long time, causing them to become vicious and inhumane. The demonic beasts of the Beast King prison were different from the astral beasts. They had been invaded by the fiendish aura for a long time, causing their intelligence to be far inferior to the beasts of the outside world. However, Their strength was greatly increased because of this. Some demonic beasts that lived long enough could even reach the sovereign level. These demonic beasts were unwilling to leave the Beast King prison, but once they did, it would be a great disaster for the universe's various races. However, the sovereigns were willing to come to the Beast King prison. This was because the crystal cores in the demonic beast's brains were the key to increasing a sovereign's strength. If a sovereign wanted to increase their strength, they would need to use crystal cores of the same level. These crystal cores were only available here. However, risks always coexisted with opportunities. Whenever a sovereign died, as long as they didn't die in a battle with other sovereigns, they would most likely die in the Beast King prison. 2,000 years ago, one of the 9 special sovereigns, Sovereign Huajin, entered the depths of the Beast King prison alone. In the end, he was trapped and unable to escape. He bitterly held on inside, but the people outside were unable to rescue him. Some people had calculated his strength. At most, he would be able to hold on for 2,000 years. After that, he would undoubtedly die. Thus, a large number of Sovereign's disciples had entered Fantasy Town to wait for this to happen. This special divine crystal had been coveted by the various great forces of the universe for a long time. Now that 2,000 years had passed, the raiders in Fantasy Town could no longer sit still. They collectively left their cultivation areas and gathered together, eagerly waiting for the Mountain of Eternity to descend. This wait lasted for another year. Just as everyone was waiting impatiently, thinking that the Mountain of Eternity might not return, it appeared. In the sky, the Mountain of Eternity appeared. The raiders in Fantasy Town were incomparably excited. The Mountain of Eternity only needed a day to descend. At that time, the top 30 would automatically enter. Lin Jun was currently ranked 9th, but since he was being watched by a sovereign, it was almost as if he was automatically eliminated. Then, this new special sovereign would be born among the 29 of them. Almost everyone's eyes turned red. This time, even if they had to risk their lives, they wouldn't give in. Everyone wanted to fight for it. Chapter 1349. Different states of mind meant different feelings when looking at things. Previously, when the Mountain of Eternity arrived, these raiders didn't care at all because it had nothing to do with them. But this time it was different. A ruler was about to be born among them. Just thinking about it made them extremely excited, and the Mountain of Eternity became sacred. These people were like a group of geese looking up at the sky. Their necks all followed the Mountain of Eternity, and nothing else in the world could attract their attention. Lin Jun's cultivation had also reached the final stage. Although the Beast Emperor technique's profoundness was relatively simple, that was only relative. The first stage still took Lin Jun a year's time. Luckily, the Mountain of Eternity arrived a year later. Otherwise, Lin Jun wouldn't know what to do. On the 100-fold cultivation point, a layer of faint golden light flickered on Lin Jun's body. It was as if a layer of golden powder had been added to his body. He clasped his hands together, and the image of a black hole beast appeared behind him. The image became smaller and smaller, and finally gathered in between Lin Jun's eyebrows. Lin Jun let out a low roar, and a layer of blood-red light suddenly appeared. His divine body's energy burned. His divine body's original energy value of 50 million instantly dropped to 40 million. Correspondingly, Lin Jun's divine power of 70 million directly rose to 84 million. The increase in divine power could last for 1 minute. Although it was only 1 minute, it was enough for ordinary battles. Lin Jun immediately raised his hand, and a drop of Ruler's Night flew out from the divine world. He opened his mouth, and it fell into his mouth. His divine power rose by another 40%. Lin Jun's divine power exceeded 110 million. To be precise, it was 117.9 million. This divine power was comparable to a supreme ruler. Lin Jun stood up, and the lotus space dissipated. He raised his head and saw the Mountain of Eternity descending from the sky. However, Lin Jun didn't immediately go to the Mountain of Eternity. Instead, he took a step forward and directly lost half of his points, arriving outside Fantasy Town. His points had dropped from 9th to 16th, but he didn't care. He went to the space where Sunflower Scar's remnant soul was sealed. Time froze in that space. Sunflower Scar's divine infant, which was about to dissipate, remained in its original position. That was the final bloom of her life. Her beauty was astonishing. Sunflower, you saved me that day. Now, it's my turn to save you. There was no time to waste. Lin Jun raised his hand, and a huge amount of divine power surged out. According to his billions of years of comprehension, time had been reversed. A gust of wind that was moving forward was quietly retreating. Dark light worlds, light and darkness intertwined. Originally, it came from east to west, but now it became from west to east. The space Lin Jun was informed of very strange contrast with the outside world. Apart from Lin Jun himself, this space-time began to reverse the flow of time. Hee. Lin Jun let out a whistling sound. His divine power surged out like a tide, and the space in Sunflower Scar began to flow in reverse. This space was sealed by Lin Jun. Those whose divine power was weaker than Lin Jun's could not destroy it. Hence, nobody had come to this space for 1,000 years. On the space barrier, there were reflections of the past 1,000 years. Lin Jun saw the rain from 900 years ago and the thunder from 800 years ago. 700 years ago, there was someone who stood here and looked at Sunflower Scar with infatuation, as if she was obsessed with something. 600 years of wind, 500 years of clouds, 400 years of moonlight, 300 years of sun, and the dark light world's eternal intertwining of light and darkness. Before Lin Jun's eyes, it was like a movie rewinding. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Under the push of his divine power, this space returned to 1,000 years ago. Things outside the space could not be restored, but there were things within the space that had to be restored. At this moment, time suddenly slowed down. This was because he had to be extremely cautious. Within the space, bits of energy that were about to dissipate began to gather slowly. The process was slow, but it was vivid. Sunflower Scar's divine infant was already close to being transparent. Now, there was a hint of life in it. Her spirit did not dissipate into the world. Instead, it was still in this space, eternally still. The ends of her black hair danced in the wind. It seemed to carry a faint fragrance. Those eyes that had been still for a long time now had a hint of dazzling life. Lin Jun felt his nose tingle. He laughed self-deprecatingly. Looks like my cultivation is still not up to par. For martial artists, this is a great taboo. I can't change it. Divine power surged out like a tide. Lin Jun finally understood why 100 million divine power was necessary. Without this amount of divine power, it was impossible to maintain the flow of time for a long time. Waves of white light flashed. Sunflower Scar's divine infant finally finished reassembling under Lin Jun's gaze. A fair and tender little girl appeared. She looked unusually cute. A divine infant was called a divine infant because it would appear in its infant form. This porcelain doll-like little girl should be Sunflower Scar's infant form. However, unlike Lin Jun's naked divine infant, Sunflower Scar's divine infant had a red to-do. In the end, there was still a difference between men and women. After the divine infant was formed, its obsidian-like eyes had a hint of life in them. With the divine infant's formation, the god world recovered as well. Sunflower Scar had begun to awaken. The flow of time was still going on. Streams of energy gathered between heaven and earth and gradually formed a human figure. Lin Jun could still clearly remember Sunflower Scar's appearance when she blocked the fatal blow for him. That was her appearance. That was her form. A spot of strong light appeared out of thin air and then began to retreat. That was the Golden Rock Grand Ancestors' attack back then. The strong light retreated from this space and immediately vanished. Then, a large patch of dazzling white light flashed before Lin Jun's eyes. He could not see anything clearly. Lin Jun slowly closed his eyes. He also stopped channeling his divine power because he knew that this was enough. He would not obtain anything even if he continued to reverse time, and it was even more impossible for his past self to appear in this space. He was sure that Sunflower Scar's consciousness had already recovered. He was not sure what would happen in a while. Would this woman still hate him for what he did to her in the past? The strong light in front of him gradually dissipated, and the space that Lin Jun had set up completely disappeared as well. Lin Jun opened his eyes and saw that after the strong light dissipated, a woman dressed in red brocade and holding a zither was staring at him. Her eyebrows were like distant mountains, her eyes were like autumn waters, and her figure was charming. There was also a hint of disbelief in her eyes. She had been unconscious for the past 1,000 years. When she suddenly woke up, she was still unable to understand what had happened. She was in a state of amnesia. She saw a tall and handsome man in front of her walking toward her. He held her weak shoulders with both hands and said somewhat excitedly, "You're finally awake. Do you still remember me? I'm Lin Jun." The beautiful woman was speechless. She clearly did not remember. Lin Jun was anxious. "You saved me." She continued to be speechless. "Play the zither for me." Her eyes were still confused. Lin Jun was even more anxious. "I'm the bravest person in the world. I dare to poke a hole in you. No, I dare to poke a hole in the sky." Chapter 1350. Seeing that Sunflower Scar's eyes were gradually becoming lively, the look in his eyes became more and more complicated as he looked at Lin Jun. Lin Jun was a little speechless. She did not expect that this matter would leave the deepest impression in Sunflower Scar's heart. Sunflower Scar reached out. Lin Jun thought that she was going to take revenge, but instead, she gently touched Lin Jun's cheek. "You reverse time?" Lin Jun nodded slightly. Sunflower Scar's eyes suddenly became wet, and she wiped away her tears. Her little nose twitched. "You must have had a hard time. Since that's the case, I won't blame you." "No, you should still blame me." Lin Jun smiled. Then, under Sunflower Scar's surprised gaze, he handed a high-grade equipment to her. Sunflower Scar didn't struggle free from Lin Jun's grip. She just didn't understand why. "Come with me to Fantasy Town. Although I still have a lot to say to you, I don't have much time to explain. The Mountain of Eternity is about to arrive." The two of them entered Fantasy Town together and appeared in the middle of the town. By now, the Mountain of Eternity was already overhead. There was less than a minute until the teleportation. A sovereign god crystal is about to appear. Sunflower Scar's expression froze. She had recovered from the excitement of being reborn. As someone who had lived in Fantasy Town for a long time, she naturally knew what a sovereign god crystal meant. That's right, it's a sovereign god crystal. And this time, it's a special sovereign god crystal. There are many sovereigns' disciples waiting ahead. Aside from me, the top 30 are all sovereigns' disciples. Sunflower Scar glanced at Lin Jun and reached out to grab Lin Jun's hand. She said softly, "Since you can reverse time, you must be very strong. I believe in you. You'll be able to obtain a sovereign god crystal in the end, no matter who your opponent is." Lin Jun smiled bitterly. "But there's a sovereign at the top of the mountain waiting to ambush me. He wants me to never obtain a sovereign god crystal." Sunflower Scar was stunned. She couldn't accept being ambushed by a sovereign. She couldn't understand it. However, she was powerless. She had just looked at her own divine monument. Her ranking had already fallen to 31st place. She was not qualified to enter the Eternal Mountain. She was destined to have no fate with the divine crystals this time. Lin Jun changed the topic and took out his golden eagle sword again. "Sunflower, I've done something that made you very sad that day. I've never liked owing others, so I'll return it to you right here." Sunflower Scar held the golden condor sword in a daze, not knowing what Lin Jun intended to do. Lin Jun pointed the tip of the sword at his chest. "Come, give me a stab. Use all your strength." The shadow of the Eternal Mountain completely covered the sky above the Fantasy Town. Everyone stopped what they were doing and silently looked at the Eternal Mountain that had descended many times. However, the others could only watch. The main characters this time were the Marauders. Rumble. As the heavens and earth trembled, the Eternal Mountain stabilized and officially descended. Goldhorn and the other pirates were so excited that their eyes sparkled. Their bodies were tense as they waited for the teleportation. Whoosh! Goldhorn was ranked first on the Divine Monument. He was the first to disappear from everyone's sight and enter the Eternal Mountain. The second person was West Wind. He was ranked second and was teleported in less than 0.1 seconds later. The third person was Kai Ching. After Black Flame died, he became the top 3 and was also teleported in. Then the fourth and the fifth. Lin Jun was originally ranked 9th. The 10th person was still waiting for Lin Jun to enter first. However, he did not expect that he would be the 9th person to enter first. What's going on? Shouldn't I be ranked 10th? However, he did not have time to pay attention to this. After entering the Eternal Mountain, everyone began to climb rapidly. They wanted to reach the top of the mountain as soon as possible and see the divine crystals as soon as possible. Goldhorn was already in the first place. As the first person on the divine monument, not only was his teleportation time slightly earlier than the others, but his position was also slightly ahead. This way, he had a greater chance of obtaining the divine crystals. However, he had just run a few steps when a gust of wind whistled behind him. Goldhorn felt something was wrong and hurriedly turned around to block it. With a loud bang, he took 2 steps back. The one who attacked him was actually West Wind. Goldhorn was instantly enraged. "West Wind, you shit-eating guy, are you crazy?" West Wind's face was incomparably ugly. "Bah, Goldhorn, who do you think you are? You think you're the strongest person in the fantasy town just because you're the first in the divine monument? Let me tell you, I'm going to snatch the Sovereign's divine crystal today. Defeating you is half the battle." Goldhorn was about to retort when he saw Kai Ching rushing forward. He was planning to snatch the divine crystal while Goldhorn and West Wind were fighting. How could Goldhorn and West Wind allow him to succeed so easily? They attacked together and intercepted Kai Ching. Soon after, the fourth, the fifth, the raiders rushed up the mountain in a frenzy. The people in front intercepted the people behind again. However, the people behind were not willing to be outdone. They took out some of their trump cards that they had not used for many years. This was a special Sovereign's divine crystal, the most precious thing in the universe. No one was willing to let it go easily. No matter who the opponent was, they had to defeat him first. The advantage of Jin Jiao's group was gone in just a blink of an eye. The Eternal Mountain was in chaos. This battle was more intense than the battle during the Beast Tide. As more and more people joined in, the battle continued to expand. Goldhorn and the others were the strongest, but the people behind them were not fools. They joined hands to deal with them, wanting to eliminate the strongest competitors first. As more and more people entered the Eternal Mountain, the people in front gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. An alien ranked 5th on the steels had been killed in the middle of a chaotic melee. At this time, no one noticed whether Lin Jun had entered or not. At the foot of the Eternal Mountain, 26 or 27 people had entered. A pirate who was originally ranked 30th was ready to enter. From his angle, he could see the situation on the Eternal Mountain. He was ready to join the battle as soon as he entered. When he reached the 28th position, he saw a red light flash. It should be the person ranked 28th. It's almost my turn. He didn't see clearly who the 28th position was. When he reached the 29th position, he saw a familiar figure. The figure in front of him flashed, and a person entered the Eternal Mountain. The pirate's eyes widened. He knew this figure very well. It was Lin Jun. Lin Jun. Why is this guy the 29th? He was puzzled when the 30th person was sent in. It wasn't him. He saw clearly that the pirate who was originally ranked 29th was now the 30th. All 30 people had entered, but he stood still. What's going on? What happened? Wasn't I ranked 30th? I checked the ranking a minute ago. Something must have gone wrong. I'm going to ask my teacher for justice. The pirate angrily opened the dimensional universe and was ready to send a screenshot of the divine monument ranking to his teacher. However, when he saw the ranking, he was stunned. Chapter 1351. The fight for the Eternal Mountain had reached its climax from the very beginning. Just as these pirates were fighting to the death, desperately advancing, Lin Jun entered. 2 pirates were fighting one-on-one. Lin Jun swept past like a gust of wind, casually stabbing one of them with his spear while the other fled in panic. Lin Jun, you're crazy. What's the point of killing people here? You can't get the God Crystal. Lin Jun sneered, I don't know if I can get it, but if you're eliminated by me, you won't be able to get it." As he spoke, Lin Jun raised his spear again. This pirate simply couldn't block Lin Jun's spear and was eliminated. After killing 2 people in a row, the Eternal Mountain's people became vigilant. "Everyone, pay attention. Lin Jun is too evil. He has no hope and doesn't want us to get it. If everyone continues to fight, no one will have a chance. Split up, split up. I don't believe he can stop everyone." The remaining 20 pirates no longer dared to fight. With a boom, they scattered like birds and beasts, rushing towards the peak from all directions. Lin Jun raised his bluestone spear and began to give chase. A pirate in front ran slowly. Lin Jun chased after him and pierced his heart with his spear. After assassinating one person, he immediately teleported, blocking the path of another. With a sweep of his spear, he was sent flying, dying on the spot. With the ability of a sovereign, killing pseudo-sovereigns was too easy. In the distance, the one running the fastest was Jin Jiao. Lin Jun abandoned the others and went straight for Jin Jiao. Jin Jiao saw Lin Jun chasing after him and couldn't help but be scared out of his wits. He was filled with regret. Why did he have to tangle with the other pirates? Unfortunately, everything was too late. Lin Jun quickly caught up. Jin Jiao used all his strength to block and kill, but the difference in strength was too great. In less than 3 moves, Lin Jun stabbed him to death. After killing Jin Jiao, the others had already entered the depths of the chaotic energy flow. Lin Jun's eyes flashed as he activated the Delusion Breaker Eye. After locking onto a target, Zhang Xian once again rushed forward. Screams rang out from time to time from the chaotic airflow. Every scream was the death of a raider. The path from a foot of the mountain to the top became a road of death for the raiders. One by one, they fell to Lin Jun's spear. However, not all of them were killed by Lin Jun. When they were about to be killed, they would desperately dodge and fight for a chance to live. Although they couldn't escape death in the end, it created an opportunity for others to escape. Lin Jun killed his way from the foot of the mountain to the top, killing a total of 26 marauders. Jin Jiao and Kai Qing were among them. However, there were 3 fishes that had escaped the net and had followed Lin Jun to the mountaintop at the same time. Lin Jun ascended from the north slope, and 3 other people appeared at the same time. One of them was West Wind, while the other 2 wore cloaks and metal masks on their faces to prevent spiritual power from prying, refusing to reveal their true faces. When West Wind reached the top of the mountain, he immediately saw the sovereign god crystal, as well as the 2 holy angels standing next to it. This sovereign god crystal glowed with rainbow light. It was rhombus-shaped and seemed to have a rainbow flowing within it. Sovereign Hua, Jin's god crystal. Special god crystals were fundamentally different from ordinary elemental god crystals. Ordinary elemental god crystals each contained 50 million units of divine power. As for sovereign god crystals and special god crystals, although they contained the same amount of divine power as ordinary elemental god crystals, these god crystals had greater potential in the future. Fusing with these god crystals would bring about many unimaginable changes. The characteristics of one's battle techniques would be strengthened more easily through the god crystals, and they would become more malleable. Any sovereign or special sovereign was stronger than ordinary elemental sovereigns. It wasn't necessarily because of how strong they were when they were sovereigns. Their god crystals definitely accounted for most of the credit. Seeing this special god crystal, West Wind's saliva almost dripped down. Especially Jin Jiao and Kai Qing, those 2 unlucky bastards. They had actually been killed by Lin Jun midway. This meant that his chances of obtaining a god crystal had greatly increased. After many years of bitter cultivation, he finally had a chance to reach the top. West Wind almost couldn't control his excitement. Ha ha ha! Lin Jun, it's really a pity. You've seen the 2 divine sovereigns, right? As long as they're here, you definitely won't have a chance to touch this god crystal, right? Facing West Wind's flattering words, the 2 divine angels were still polite. After all, if West Wind obtained this special god crystal, he would be in existence on the same level as the sovereign of light, Tian Shao. In the future, he would surpass them. We definitely won't interfere with any of you fighting over the God Crystal. The two of us came here to stop Lin Jun. Then what if Lin Jun wants to attack us? West Wind asked worriedly. The divine angels said indifferently. That will depend on whether he has the ability to obtain such an opportunity from us. West Wind received an affirmative answer and felt even more proud. His gaze first swept over the two caped and masked plunderers, and he couldn't help but feel disdain in his heart. In the process of fleeing just now, many people wanted to use this method to hide their true faces. But what was the use? Could it be that if you wore a mask, others wouldn't kill you? Would they let you take the God Crystal? You're really deceiving yourself. Extremely stupid. Lin Jun, you should give up. Your biggest mistake was not eliminating me on the way. Since you let me come here, no one can stop me. The remaining two quasi-sovereigns were automatically ignored by him. The divine angels looked at Lin Jun with a cold smile. Lin Jun, last time you didn't obtain the God Crystal. This time, the result will be the same. I advise you to leave Fantasy Town or never participate in the fight for the God Crystal. This is the consensus of most sovereigns. You will never have a chance. Lin Jun weighed the stone spear in his hand, and his gaze swept over the divine angels and the sovereign God Crystal. My temper isn't very good, and I don't listen to other people's advice. What others don't want me to do, I just have to do it for them to see. Besides, do you think that when faced with a special sovereign God Crystal, you can make me give up with just a few words? Don't be naive. The two divine angels looked at each other, and then the divine angels laughed coldly. As expected, stubborn. Since that's the case, then you're going against the light. With that, he and the divine angels raised their hands at the same time. Lin Jun, last time we underestimated you, and you were lucky enough to hold on for a while. This time, you won't have such a chance. Anyone who goes against the light will be destroyed. The divine angels attacked at the same time. Two powerful balls of light swept through the world. Their target was Lin Jun, but they were much more powerful than last time. This time, they didn't hold back at all. Lin Jun wouldn't just sit there and wait for death. He moved. On the other side, West Wind and the other two cloaked men also moved at the same time. Chapter 1352. This time, the second holy angel's attack was unprecedentedly powerful. The two balls of holy light intertwined like a heaven-devouring dragon. Their divine power even seemed to overlap. Space was locked down, making teleportation impossible. As soon as he saw them attack, Lin Jun knew that he wasn't their match. But Lin Jun didn't care at all. He immediately used all of his defensive techniques. Mysterious Yellow Pagoda, Chaos Lotus, Chaos Armor, Armor Transformation, Appendage Metal, Black Tortoise Shell's Defensive Power, Indestructible Tyrant Body, Mutated Astral Leech's Regenerative Power. All of his power was concentrated. At the same time, Lin Jun used Immovable Mountain's defensive stance, allowing the Bluestone Spear to lay down another layer of defense. Two bolts of baleful armor piercing lightning shot out from between his eyebrows. While defending against the second Holy Angel's attack, Lin Jun also launched a counterattack. Clash! A powerful light exploded in front of Lin Jun. Faced with the most powerful attacks of two sovereigns, his defenses were broken through layer by layer. His divine body's energy was like a leaking kettle, instantly emptying out. 11%. The second Holy Angel's attack directly destroyed 89% of Lin Jun's divine body's energy. This was the power of a true sovereign. They didn't hold back at all. Lin Jun sat down weakly on the ground. He'd taken this attack head-on without dodging at all. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so heavily injured. But it was all worth it. His two bolts of lightning had blasted West Wind and a masked raider into pieces. This sort of lightning, which could heavily injure or even kill a sovereign, wasn't something a quasi-sovereign could withstand. West Wind and the masked raider didn't even have time to make a sound before they were eliminated. At first, the second Holy Angel thought that Lin Jun's baleful armor-piercing lightning was aimed at them. They didn't expect that it would only kill two raiders. The second Holy Angel froze for a moment, then laughed loudly. Lin Jun, you're quite the schemer. You want to eliminate everyone else, and then you'll be the only one left. That way, you'll be the only one left, right? What? Can't I? Lin Jun forced himself to ask. What a fool. Saint Angel had a mocking look on his face. The two of us have already received the authorization of many sovereigns. We're here to stop you from obtaining the divinity crystals. Anyone else can do it, but not you. Even if you're the only one left at the top of the mountain, don't even think about succeeding. Lin Jun gripped his bluestone spear. You don't care about the others? Of course, other than you, it doesn't matter to me. The second holy angel had the confidence to say such a thing. After all, the people competing with Lin Jun for the divine crystals were all plunderers. They were all disciples of other sovereigns. This was one of the reasons why the other sovereigns supported the Radiant Sovereign. As long as Lin Jun was eliminated, the divine crystals would definitely fall into the hands of the other sovereign's disciples. The angel of God stepped to the side, shielding the last alien behind her. She didn't want Lin Jun to kill the last one in a moment of desperation. If that happened, things would get a lot more complicated. Lin Jun lowered his head and didn't move for a long time. Fine. It seems I don't have a chance. Then I'll withdraw from this competition for the sovereign's divinity crystals. Faced with the second holy angel's power, Lin Jun chose to back down. The second holy angel sneered, but they didn't let down their guard. They continued to block Lin Jun, locking down the space around them and preventing Lin Jun from suddenly exploding. Saint Angel waved her hand, indicating for the last alien to collect the divinity crystal. The last alien took 2 steps forward, stopping in front of the divinity crystal. She raised her hand and took it. Hurry up and fuse with it. When the time comes, remember that us 2 brothers helped you before. Saint Angel finally spoke, but she was speaking to this alien. This alien would soon surpass the 2 of them. It was important to maintain a good relationship with her. The alien nodded, took the divinity crystal, and was about to leave. Something's not right. Saint Angel's expression suddenly changed. Through her keen sense of smell, she detected a faint fragrance. The alien in front of her was a woman. As far as he knew, all the raiders should be men. How could there be a woman? The 2 of them came from the mountain of eternity. They couldn't see the rankings on the sovereign's heavenly steel, but they knew that there was only one woman in the entire fantasy town. And that was Sunflower Scar. Could it be that Lin Jun had revived Sunflower Scar? The person in front of them was her. No wonder they saw Lin Jun as the 29th person to climb the mountain. The entire situation was clear. Lin Jun had taken advantage of the Mountain of Eternity's descent to have Sunflower Scar kill him in Fantasy Town. That way, half of Lin Jun's points would belong to Sunflower Scar. His ranking fell from 16th to 29th, while Sunflower Scar's points rose to 28th. At that time, everyone was preparing to climb the mountain. No one noticed the change in the rankings, so the person who was originally in 30th place was directly pushed out. Sunflower Scar had disguised herself as an alien and followed Lin Jun up the mountain, waiting for this moment to seize the divinity crystal. It could be said that Lin Jun had never planned to seize the divinity crystal himself. He knew that he couldn't get it, so he eliminated the other competitors. His pretense was to create an opportunity for Sunflower Scar. Saint Angel and Saint Angel reacted almost instantly. They couldn't help but want to stop Sunflower Scar. They didn't know if this was the right thing to do. Although their mission was to stop Lin Jun, it was obvious that Sunflower Scar was in cahoots with Lin Jun. If this special divinity crystal fell into her hands, it would be very disadvantageous for them in the future. But at that moment, Lin Jun made his move. His third bolt of heavenly baleful lightning struck the angel of God, while he charged in front of the holy angel and self-detonated. Even if he self-destructed here, he would only lose half of his points. Lin Jun didn't care. Saint Angel didn't expect Lin Jun to suddenly make his move. Faced with such a powerful attack, they had no time to stop Sunflower Scar. Saint Angel took Lin Jun's self-destruction and retreated, wounded. Saint Angel was even more unlucky. After being struck by Lin Jun's divine lightning, nearly half of his divine body's energy had been destroyed. His condition wasn't any better than Saint Angel's. During this short delay, Sunflower Scar had already left the Mountain of Eternity and returned to Fantasy Town. After losing the Divinity Crystal, the Mountain of Eternity automatically returned to primal chaos. As sovereigns, Saint Angel and Saint Angel couldn't enter Fantasy Town. They could only angrily roar at the top of the mountain as they followed the Mountain of Eternity. They had indeed stopped Lin Jun from seizing the Divinity Crystal, but now that it had fallen into Sunflower Scar's hands, he would become one of the special sovereigns in the future. Dealing with Lin Jun had already incurred the displeasure of several sovereigns. If Sunflower Scar joined the fray in the future, it would be extremely disadvantageous. Who would have thought that Lin Jun would be so cunning? He had actually toyed with these sovereigns in the palm of his hand. Chapter 1353. Lin Jun returned to Fantasy Realm Town. Looking in Sunflower Scar's direction, he saw colorful clouds swirling around him. He felt gratified. His plan hadn't been in vain. Sunflower Scar had finally obtained the Sovereign God Crystal. She had become a special sovereign. She would definitely be of help to him. Lin Jun believed that Lone Star Fishing Old Man knew that these sovereigns wanted to deal with him. Lone Star Fishing Old Man probably hadn't done much in this matter. Lin Jun wasn't his official disciple yet, so he couldn't count on him to do much for him. Perhaps becoming a sovereign was a huge test in itself. After becoming a sovereign, it seemed that everyone had to go to the Beast King prison to train. This was a necessary process. Lin Jun was currently thinking about what to do next when the Mountain of Eternity came. Even if Sunflower Scar wanted to help him, he probably couldn't come to Fantasy Realm Town. There were many things that he would have to rely on himself. Just as Lin Jun was thinking, the clouds in the sky suddenly roiled. The sky opened. A person had appeared where the Mountain of Eternity had appeared before. No, it wasn't a person. It was just a projection. Amidst the countless rays of light, the Sovereign of Light, Tian Shao, had appeared. The intense light made it so that no one could open their eyes. The other pseudo-sovereigns could only hide, not daring to raise their heads. Only Lin Jun, relying on his tyrannical divine power, could raise his head to look at the sky. He could directly look at the person with the strongest holy power in the world. The Sovereign of Light's eyes shone with divine light. Even though it was just a projection, one could still feel his incomparable rage. Lin Jun, you deserve to die. Lin Jun coldly snorted. Many people want me dead, but I'm still alive and well. The Sovereign of Light seemed to know Lin Jun's temper. After saying this, he didn't discuss this topic any further. Instead, he went straight to the point. Lin Jun, leave Fantasy Realm Town. Although you are destined to never become a sovereign, given your strength, you won't be afraid even if there are many sovereigns. The universe is vast. Where can't you go? Lin Jun chuckled. So what if I go? If my dream doesn't come true, there's no point in going anywhere. I can guarantee you that you will have the privilege of being a sovereign. Your authority will be the same as that of sovereign. Furthermore, no sovereign will be allowed to attack you first forever. Lin Jun paused for a moment. Can you keep your word on this kind of thing? Tian Shao said proudly. Do you know the highest council? Lin Jun nodded slightly. With the inheritance of the 100-bird sovereign, he knew many things. The so-called Supreme Council was made up of 9 special sovereigns and 8 honorable sovereigns, for a total of 17 people. These 17 people were the organization with the highest authority in the universe. Although there were conflicts between them, the Supreme Council would discuss and make a decision together if there was a major event. Generally speaking, if an event needed to be implemented, it would be enough as long as more than half of the members of the highest council agreed. As long as more than half of the members agreed, the remaining members didn't even need to be notified. For example, this time, when they wanted to deal with Lin Jun and prevent him from obtaining the sovereign's godly crystal, more than half of the members had already agreed. As for people like Lonely Star Fisherman, Tian Shao only needed to notify him. Whether or not he agreed, Tian Shao and the others would still act against Lin Jun. Tian Shao continued. Everyone must abide by the decisions of the Supreme Council. I'm confident that more than half of the members will agree to this condition. What are you still worried about? Seeing that Lin Jun didn't immediately reply, Tian Xiao continued. If you persist in going about things the wrong way, then the only thing that awaits you is death. Lin Jun pondered for a moment. If I continue to persist, not only will I not obtain the godly crystal, but you will also act against me. Exactly. Hearing the Radiant Sovereign's resolute and decisive words, Lin Jun knew that he didn't have much time left. The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. Lin Jun had long since understood this principle. His path of cultivation had been too perfect and too powerful. He had virtually no weaknesses. Once Lin Jun obtained the sovereign's godly crystal, he would definitely become one of the most powerful sovereigns. He would be so powerful that he could even threaten the lives of other sovereigns. No one liked the appearance of someone who could kill them at any time. These sovereigns were even more so. Thus, Lin Jun had an irreconcilable conflict with them. They definitely wouldn't allow someone like Lin Jun to appear. But Lin Jun didn't believe the Radiant Sovereign's words either. If he left Mirage Town, he would have no chance at all. They would definitely act against him and pull him out by the roots. More importantly, Lin Jun would never agree. He had already reached this point. How could Lin Jun possibly allow himself to be coerced by others? Raising his head to the skies, Lin Jun stuck out a single finger. Not a thumb, but a middle finger. In your King dreams. The Radiant Sovereign's face changed, and he said good 3 times in a row. Good, good, good. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Lin Jun, this is your own choice. Don't blame anyone else. You will be consigned to eternal damnation. After saying this, the figure in the sky disappeared. His projection disappeared. Mirage Town regained its calm. The others didn't even know what had just happened. They were all stupefied. Only now did Lin Jun realize that he was the only one who had been able to see Tian Xiao's arrival. Everyone else's vision, including their spiritual energy, had been forcibly obscured by Tian Xiao's sacred light. Lin Jun calmly sat on the 100-fold cultivation spot. For once, he didn't choose to cultivate. He was waiting for Sunflower Scar to complete his breakthrough. Roughly 2 hours later, Sunflower Scar completed his breakthrough. Multicolored light shot out in all directions. Strange phenomena appeared in the sky one after another. This breakthrough caused a much greater disturbance than Steam Bun and Hey 2's breakthroughs. In an instant, the world returned to calm. A figure flashed in front of Lin Jun's eyes. Sunflower Scar was already standing in front of him. She was dressed in red. After becoming a sovereign, she had become an outstanding beauty. Nothing more beautiful could be imagined. Lin Jun lightly clapped his hands, applauding Sunflower Scar. Congratulations. Congratulations to Miss Sunflower for completing your final dream and becoming a special sovereign. Sunflower Scar's red lips parted. She wanted to say something, but she suddenly didn't know what to say to Lin Jun. She had once dreamed of becoming a sovereign, but she had never thought that she would become a special sovereign. Special sovereigns and supreme sovereigns were of the same rank, but in reality, special sovereigns were slightly higher. This was because this position had limitless possibilities compared to supreme sovereigns. In the future, one could achieve even greater things. However, with Lin Jun's help, she had reached her current position. With light steps, Sunflower Scar arrived in front of Lin Jun. She looked up at this man. The complex emotions in her eyes were indescribable. Finally, she stood on her tiptoes and touched Lin Jun's lips. Actually, in my heart, I'm just a small sunflower. My dream is to revolve around my lover. My life is the warmth he gives me. Lin Jun, I must complete the sovereign's mission. Wait for me to return. The soft touch on his lips disappeared. Sunflower Scar also disappeared at the same time. Lin Jun closed his eyes. Sunflower Scar still didn't know her situation. When she returned, he didn't know if he would be able to see her again. Chapter 1354. After Sunflower Scar left, Lin Jun returned to the 100-fold cultivation spot. He didn't choose to continue cultivating. Instead, he closed his eyes and rested. There was no need to cultivate because the true calamity was about to arrive. Lin Jun was extremely clear-headed. The air was filled with an oppressive aura. The quasi-sovereigns in Fantasy Town all felt extremely uneasy. Anyone who could cultivate to this level definitely wasn't an ordinary person. They all had a keen premonition of danger. A moment later, a soft chuckle came from the sky. Then, a figure flashed from one of the sovereign seats. Someone had arrived. There were 81 sovereign positions that supported the operation of Fantasy Town. They were scattered all over the sky, and each position corresponded to a sovereign. Only a sovereign could appear directly on one of those seats. The one who had appeared in the sky was the radiant sovereign Tian Shao. Haha, Lin Jun, it seemed you're not stupid. You actually knew I was coming. Lin Jun snorted coldly. What's there not to see? You're just waiting for Sunflower Scar to leave so that you can do whatever you want. You shouldn't be the only one here. Who else is there? Just come over. Smart. Since you've already thought of this, I might as well tell you. The Fantasy Town relies on the power of many sovereigns to operate. To ensure its operation, at least more than half of the sovereign's power is needed. When more than half of the sovereigns stop supplying their power, the Fantasy Town will disappear. The Radiant Sovereign looked mockingly at Lin Jun. You probably didn't expect your appearance to be so unwelcome. Now, I'll show you just how many people hate your appearance. After saying this, 2 more flashes of light appeared in the sky. The 2 holy angels appeared on either side of the Radiant Sovereign. 3 sovereigns. The appearance of these 3 wasn't unexpected. They were the main force against Lin Jun. But what happened next caused Fantasy Town to erupt into an uproar. 3 more flashes of light appeared, and 3 more Radiant Sovereigns appeared. These were all Radiant Sovereigns who were on good terms with Tian Shao. Including Tian Shao and the other 2, there were 6 Radiant Sovereigns. Then, a sovereign appeared on one of the lofty seats. This person was dressed in golden robes. He sat there like a spear or a sharp sword. Metal Element Exalted Sovereign Skyflower. He was known as the man with the strongest attack power in the universe. Seeing Tianhua, Jin Jiao jumped up and waved his hand at the sky. Master, I'm here. Why are you here? Tianhua snorted when he saw Jin Jiao. If I didn't come, you idiot would have been bullied to death. How can I not come? Jin Jiao lowered his head and didn't dare to make sound. Tianhua didn't ask him either. His purpose of coming here was obvious. As Heavenflower arrived, a gust of wind kicked up, and a man appeared on the seat of the Wind-type Exalted Sovereign. Wind Exalted Ruler, Celestial Astral. When West Wind saw Big Dipper appear, he was about to greet him when Big Dipper glared at him. What a disgrace. Look at what you've done in Fantasy Town. You've really disappointed me. West Wind shrunk his neck and didn't dare to speak. He had been humiliated enough. He had been pushed down by Lin Jun. This was an unprecedented humiliation. Later, when he wanted to get the Sovereign God Crystal, he was eliminated by Lin Jun's Divine Lightning. He wanted to complain to his master, but now it seemed that there was no need. His master already knew everything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come here. The next to appear was the Wood-type Exalted Sovereign, Kai Qing's master. Kai Qing was also reprimanded. After all, they didn't perform as well as they should in the Fantasy Town. Their master was very dissatisfied. With the arrival of the Wood-type Exalted Sovereign, there were now 4 other Exalted Sovereigns. Half of the universe's 8 Exalted Sovereigns were here. But this wasn't the end. Figures flashed, and the masters and elders of these plunderers appeared one by one. Every single one of them was a sovereign. Their arrival would cause a huge commotion. 7, 8, 10, 11, 15, 20, 30. Within Fantasy Town, there were a total of 29 plunderers. Now, 31 sovereigns had arrived. The masters and elders of every plunderer had arrived, and each of them was sitting in their own seats. This was probably the first time such a scene had occurred in the universe. Along with the commotion in the crowd, 2 more heavyweights arrived. The Earth-type Exalted Sovereign, the Fire-type Exalted Sovereign. These 2 Exalted Sovereigns didn't have disciples in Fantasy Town, but they still came at the invitation of the Radiant Sovereign. 33 sovereigns. In order to stop Fantasy Town's operations, at least 41 sovereigns had to come, and at least 9 of them were members of the Supreme Council. Now, they were still short of 8 sovereigns and 3 members of the Supreme Council. The water-type exalted sovereign has arrived. A watery light rippled in the sky. Another exalted sovereign had arrived. Of the 8 elemental sovereigns, aside from the lightning-type exalted sovereign, all of them had arrived. The lightning-type exalted sovereign was the master of the demonic star. He was the one who had played chess with Lonely Star Fishing Old Man Lin and guessed that this person wouldn't come. After all, he was friends with Lonely Star Fishing Old Man and wouldn't come on account of Lonely Star Fishing Old Man. The elemental sovereigns were of the same branch, so it wasn't strange for them to come. However, it wasn't easy to invite the special sovereigns. Kakik, how could this old man miss out on such a lively place? Dark clouds roiled, and one of the 9 special sovereigns appeared. The Death Sovereign has arrived. The crowd gasped in surprise as the 35th sovereign appeared. The Death Sovereign was one of the oldest sovereigns in the universe. He was from the same generation as Tian Shao. He wore a long robe as black as the night, and his blue eyes seemed to flicker like will-o'-the-wisps. This person's appearance was like that of a malicious spirit. Anyone who looked at him would feel intimidated. When the Death Sovereign arrived, the others all cupped their hands in greeting, expressing their respect. The Death Sovereign only greeted Tian Shao and the other sovereigns. The others didn't even look at him. He lowered his head and looked down, his gaze landing on Lin Jun. Following the Death Sovereign's arrival, several other elemental sovereigns arrived as well. The total number of people had reached 40. As long as one more member of the council arrived, they would be able to stop the operation of the fantasy realm. At that time, the fantasy realm would disappear and the main body would appear. These pseudo-sovereigns would also lose their protection. In the sky, a powerful force suddenly descended. When this person arrived, even the arrogant Death Sovereign's expression changed. He snorted coldly. A spear landed on the seat of honor. A sovereign had appeared. He wore golden armor and a golden cape behind him. He was tall, powerful, and intimidating. His powerful aura forced the other sovereigns to turn slightly. His domineering aura leaked out. The only person in the world who could have such a domineering aura was the person Lin Jun had learned from, the Overlord Sovereign. At this point, 41 sovereigns had arrived at the fantasy realm. Among them were 9 members of the Supreme Council. Chapter 1355. 41 sovereigns had gathered. This was a rare occasion, and it was happening in Mirage Town. The last to appear was the Overlord. He didn't greet anyone. Instead, he looked at Lin Jun with interest. This person was one of the top 5 sovereigns. His strength was astonishing. Even Lin Jun hadn't expected him to appear here. Did he not want to see him grow? Seeing that everyone had arrived, Radiant Sovereign Tian Shao sat down on his seat of honor and looked at Lin Jun with a smile. Lin Jun, I understand how people like you think. You think you can hide in Mirage Town forever and stay safe. You think I can't do anything to you. But you'll never know how much power a sovereign can unleash once he makes up his mind. Moreover, this matter is closely related to all sovereigns. If it weren't for the fact that so many sovereigns are wandering outside or fighting in the Beast King prison, there would be more than 41 sovereigns here. Lin Jun sighed as he looked at the people in the sky. This matter was going to be difficult to handle. 41 sovereigns had decided on this matter, including 9 members of the Supreme Council. There was no way to change it. Not even Lone Star Fishing Elder would be able to stop this from happening, let alone Sunflower Scar. It seems that I should be honored to be able to attract the attention of so many people. Even if I die, it'll be a worthy death. Tian Shao laughed. If you hadn't refused my suggestion, you wouldn't have ended up like this. Lin Jun, let's see if you'll still be so carefree when Mirage Town can no longer protect you. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand. Everyone attack. The 41 sovereigns all sat down cross-legged, their bodies glowing with a faint divine light. The light from these sovereigns grew brighter and brighter until it was blinding. However, just like the principle of decline after reaching the pinnacle of prosperity, when the light reached a certain level, it suddenly extinguished. After a blinding flash of light, there was darkness. The light from the 41 sovereigns disappeared. Then, the light from the remaining 40 sovereigns also disappeared. More than half of the sovereigns no longer emitted any power. The remaining sovereigns lost their power as well. The formation had stopped. As the light faded, everything within Mirage Town became blurry and illusory until it completely disappeared. Everything disappeared, leaving behind only the confused sovereigns. They appeared where they had first entered the town. Lin Jun's hundredfold cultivation spot had disappeared as well. That illusory feeling. Looking around him, he saw that they were all pseudo-sovereigns. When the quasi-dominators saw Lin Jun, it was as if they had seen something terrifying. With a boom, they all fled into the distance. In the blink of an eye, there were no longer any sovereigns. Lin Jun was the only one sovereigns. Only in the sky, the eternal light and darkness of the dark light world shone on his body. Up in the sky, the sovereigns didn't immediately attack. Instead, they looked at Lin Jun with interest, hoping to see fear, despair, and other emotions on his face. The Death Sovereign said, "Death is a kind of art. Everyone has different emotions when they die. You won't be able to find two identical examples in the entire universe. I want to see how this Lin Jun will react." Tian Xiao chuckled. "Your strange fetish is truly unique. If I hadn't told you that Lin Jun is the most talented and powerful person in the world, you probably wouldn't have come." The Death Sovereign said matter-of-factly, "That's right. How could I miss such a rare sight?" After speaking, he looked at the Overlord Sovereign. "I just didn't expect him to come. He shouldn't care about such things." The Overlord Sovereign finally spoke. "Lin Jun learned my battle technique, the Star Spear technique." The Death Sovereign was confused. "Isn't that perfect? I can see your skills shine." "Ha ha ha. You still don't understand. A mountain can't have two tigers. There should only be one Overlord, not two peerless geniuses." Hearing the Overlord Sovereign's words, Tian Xiao and the Death Sovereign began to understand. The Overlord should be a peerless figure. If Lin Jun became a sovereign, then wouldn't he be on the same level as the Overlord Sovereign, or even above him? To learn the Overlord Sovereign's spear technique, one had to be as prideful as the Overlord Sovereign. From this perspective, Lin Jun and the Overlord Sovereign were the same. The proud Overlord Sovereign couldn't allow such a thing to happen, which was why he had come. Tian Xiao laughed loudly. "That's why it's best to create your own battle technique. Lin Jun, oh Lin Jun, it's a pity you don't have that ability. You won't be able to see that day." The Chief Sovereign of Light flung his robes aside, then rose to his feet and looked down at Lin Jun from above. "If you don't have any last words, then we're going to attack." The 41 sovereigns all stood up. Every one of them had a ball of energy dancing in their hands. 41 streaks of energy could descend from the heavens at any moment and turn Lin Jun to dust. This was an unstoppable force. No one could reverse or change it. It was as if Lin Jun was the only one left in the world, facing these gods and Buddhas. They weren't gods or Buddhas, but they were even more powerful than gods or Buddhas. They were the sovereigns of this universe. In the distant starry sky, the many sovereigns stared silently at Lin Jun. At this moment, they didn't know whether to feel sorrow or joy. Weren't martial artists born to work hard for the sake of becoming stronger? But why was it that when one reached the limit of cultivation, they would receive such treatment? They could only blame Lin Jun for being too talented and too strong. He was so strong that this world couldn't tolerate him. He was so strong that the other sovereigns felt fear, which was why they had attacked him. The balance couldn't be broken. It was that simple. Lin Jun closed his eyes. There were only two paths in front of him. One was to leave behind a few last words and then be killed. The other was to grab a weapon and fight back, even though the result wouldn't change. This was a battle he couldn't win. Even if he left behind some last words, they wouldn't be of any use. His family's future would also be tragic. These sovereigns weren't philanthropists. Behind every sovereign was a sea of blood and death. Then he could only fight back. Lin Jun raised his hand, grabbing his own limestone spear. He was a martial artist. His greatest trump card was his ability. Stretching out his neck without releasing his spear wasn't Lin Jun's style. Even if others thought this action was stupid, he still had to do it. Just as Lin Jun made up his mind, Light and darkness crisscrossed in the sky, falling onto his face. Time seemed to freeze in this moment. Everything froze, as if time had come to a standstill, enveloping everything. Between heaven and earth, a familiar yet strange voice suddenly came from far and near. Lin Jun, is this your final choice? Chapter 1356. Lin Jun had heard this voice more than once. Back on the Star of Divine Punishment, it was this voice that guided Lin Jun and gave him power. In the end, he obtained the divine body. Later on, in each crisis, this voice would appear at the right time to give him pointers and help him grow. Lin Jun used to think that this was some sovereign, but now, it seemed like that wasn't the case. Although Lin Jun didn't know who he was, it didn't stop Lin Jun from having a good impression of him. Are you here to save me? Lin Jun asked. No. In this world, the only person who can save you is yourself. If you had given up just now, I wouldn't have appeared. But I'm only fighting for my dignity now. I can't win. Lin Jun, don't place too much importance on winning or losing. If you win, you'll still lose in the future. If you lose, you'll still win in the future. But if you lose this time, you'll die. Losing and winning, life and death, it's just a cycle. You're born to walk towards death. Death is the beginning of a new life. Oh, Lin Jun, this is your calamity and your destiny. When you keep breaking the universe's records, you're destined to be intolerable. Lin Jun nodded slightly. How could he not know this? But this wasn't a reason for him to stop cultivating. As a martial artist, it would be a pity if he couldn't reach the true peak. But he didn't know how to survive this calamity. In the sky, a speck of starlight flashed. In this still world, this insignificant speck of starlight was extremely eye-catching. Gradually, the starlight got closer and closer. It turned into a piece of paper and floated before Lin Jun. Lin Jun, you're in a situation that can't be reversed. If this continues, you'll never be able to obtain the Sovereign's divine crystal. But you must maintain your normal state of mind. Remember what I said just now. Only after you've survived this calamity will you have the right to reach the peak. The piece of paper landed in Lin Jun's palm. There were a few words on it. 9 revolutions of nirvana. This is, life and death are nothing more than a cycle of reincarnation. Lin Jun, goodbye. Wait, who are you? Before Lin Jun could finish speaking, the piece of paper suddenly turned into a golden light and entered Lin Jun's mind. A huge amount of knowledge poured into him. Unlike the cultivation methods of the past, which required slow comprehension and digestion, Lin Jun learned this set of cultivation methods almost instantly. It was also possible that this instant was 10,000 years, or it was also possible that it was just an instant. Lin Jun was unable to tell, but he had truly learned this set of cultivation methods. Nirvana, reincarnation, a path to the heavens, a path of thorns. This mysterious person did not leave behind any other information. The requirements of this cultivation technique were also incomparably harsh. Lin Jun did not know who this person was. He had quietly come and left without a sound. Apart from Lin Jun, no one else had noticed his arrival. Based on this point alone, Lin Jun knew that this person was definitely not a sovereign. He was someone on another level. Nirvana. Can I do it? Lin Jun raised his head. He found that the space around him had returned to normal. In the sky, 41 sovereigns joined forces to launch a fierce attack at him. Each of them attacked once. The attacks of 41 sovereigns shook the dark light world. 41 balls of light converged into a destructive shockwave. A powerful chemical reaction occurred in the air. Flames, explosions. Attack. Arrive. At this moment, Lin Jun could almost clearly see everyone's expressions. He could almost feel the thoughts of everyone around him. The sovereigns were determined to kill him. As for the quasi-sovereigns, they felt pity for him and grieved for him. Pity? I've never needed such things. Come, my final bloom. His godly power surged. In the final moment, Lin Jun consumed the last drop of Sovereign's liquid. His godly power increased by 20%. The first layer of the Beast King tactic opened. His godly power increased by another 20%. All of his equipment was activated. His godly power was fully displayed. The seventh layer of the overlay battle technique combined with the fifth move of the star spear technique. His all-conquering martial intent opened. Lin Jun launched the most powerful attack in his life. 5 Thunder Collapse, Doomsday Descends. An attack that surpassed the speed of light. Heavenly Fiend, Death Chi. The moment before the joint attack of the 41 sovereigns arrived, Lin Jun's spear stabbed out. Then a massive explosion occurred that affected billions of stars. All of Lin Jun's equipment, including the Bluestone Spear and the Primeval Armor, were shattered under the joint attack of the 41 sovereigns. His protective godly power was unable to withstand this massive attack. His entire body erupted with a powerful light like a nuclear explosion. On the nearly immovable ground of the dark light world, a crater comparable to the size of the solar system was blasted open. The tumbling shock waves spread out. Several hundred quasi-sovereigns who didn't dodge too far away were directly swallowed up by the shock wave, not even their bones remaining. The violent light waves continued for a full 10 minutes. In the distance, Jin Jiao and the others looked at the center of the explosion. They were so shocked that they couldn't speak. After a long while, West Wind said, This might be the most glorious way to die in the entire universe. Jin Jiao let out a long breath. It's over. No one will fight with us for the Sovereign's divine crystal anymore. Kai Qing said faintly. Seeing this scene, I suddenly feel that there's no meaning in fighting for the Sovereign's divine crystal anymore. Many of the quasi-sovereigns felt the same way. Today's scene had overturned their understanding of the Sovereigns. Even Sovereigns would be jealous of those with talent and would expel those who disagreed with them. If this continued, the truly peerless experts would most likely not be able to make a name for themselves. However, they were powerless to change anything. They could only go with the flow. Only one of the quasi-sovereigns, a plant life form, moved his lips a few times. In the end, he didn't say anything. He wanted to say that in the last sovereign's divine crystal, he seemed to have seen a green lotus bloom at the center of the explosion. He suspected that there might be more twists and turns in this. However, when he looked at the divine steel, he saw that Lin Jun's name had already disappeared. If he said something like that, no one would believe him. In the sky, the sovereigns were already preparing to leave. Lin Jun was already dead. There was no need to stay here any longer. As the sovereigns activated their powers once more, the formation of Fantasy Town activated once more. The town reappeared. One by one, the sovereigns bid farewell to each other and left. The Overlord was the first to leave. The Death Sovereign was the second. The last 3 people left were the Supreme Sovereign of Light, Tian Shao, and his 2 divine angels. Master, let's return to the Kingdom of Light, said the divine angel. At this moment, Tian Shao suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood was black. There was also a layer of black mist around his body. Master, what's wrong with you? Tian Shao waved his hand. Let's go. Lin Jun, that bastard, actually injured me with his spear at the last moment. I've been infected by the innate baleful death aura. I have to rush back to the Kingdom of Light immediately for treatment. Chapter 1357. As all the sovereigns left, Fantasy Town regained its usual peace. The quasi-sovereigns all returned to Fantasy Town. No matter what Lin Jun's story was, it was all in the past. Their lives still had to go on. Although they were a little lost back then, after recovering, they still had to fight for the sovereign god crystal. As for Lin Jun, he could only be left as a legend for future generations to comment on. On the way to the Beast King prison, Sunflower Scar suddenly stopped. A bad feeling rose in her heart. She immediately checked the dimensional universe. As a special sovereign, she had the highest authority. She quickly found out what had happened in the dark light world. Lin Jun. 2 lines of tears silently slid down her cheeks. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that the breakup this time would actually be the final goodbye. It was useless to go back and rescue him now. The dark light world was already empty. The only thing Sunflower Scar could do was to complete the sovereign trial as soon as possible and avenge Lin Jun. Somewhere in the Fiend Star, Snow White and Bai Susu, who had already become quasi-sovereigns, were cultivating hard. They suddenly stopped. Sister, something bad seems to have happened. Snow White's expression changed slightly. She quickly checked the situation in the dimensional universe. Quasi-sovereigns had high authority. Soon, they received the news. The two sisters stood there in a daze. They hugged each other and cried for a long time. Primordial Realm, Fallen Star, Lake's Sacred Land. Ning Qingxian was chatting with Su Mingyue and Ning when they both felt their hearts throbbing. Especially Su Mingyue, who had once consumed the twin star crystal with Lin Jun. Her heart was in pain, and her face was pale. Husband. Sister Ning, Sister Qingxian, husband. No. It can't be. He promised to attend Mei Er's wedding. How could this be? I don't believe it. Before she could finish, she fainted. The Lin family was in chaos. Feng Qingwan, who was also training in the universe, was also shocked. However, Feng Qingwan was much stronger. After a long silence, she felt that things would not be so bad. She was also connected to Lin Jun by blood, but she could feel a sliver of hope in this life and death calamity. I should go find Su Mingyue and the others immediately. Maybe things won't be that bad. After transforming into a 7-colored phoenix, Feng Qingwan headed straight for Fallen Star Lake in the Primordial Realm. However, she wasn't confident that she could convince Ning and the others. After all, no matter how she looked at it, it was a tragedy. She just hoped that her hard work would be able to let these people regain their confidence. At least there was still a glimmer of hope. Lin Jun, I won't allow you to die. When I was undergoing Phoenix Nirvana, you were the one who took care of me. You were such a strong and fearless person. Now that it's your turn, how can you fall? Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Lin Jun felt that he might have arrived at the beginning of the world. A mass of chaos enveloped his body, making him unable to tell where he was, nor could he tell north from south. The power that he was so proud of had completely vanished. The only thing that remained was his memories. Everything that he had experienced in this life was still vivid in his mind. Especially at his final moment, when the Sovereign's powerful attacks arrived, his body collapsed. The combined forces of 41 Sovereigns was simply unstoppable. His divine body's energy returned to zero, and Lin Jun's nascent soul left his body. The late-stage crystal formation nascent soul rapidly fell in grade, from late-stage crystal formation nascent soul to dark iron rank. Just as the nascent soul was about to collapse, a miracle happened. Within the divine world, the chaos green lotus bloomed. A mass of green light burst out from the green lotus seed, enveloping Lin Jun's nascent soul and escaping through space. The chaos green lotus seed, this strange item that had absorbed the universe's origin 3 times, saved Lin Jun once again. Since the nascent soul did not collapse, he was not truly dead. However, after being attacked by the power of 41 Sovereigns, he was unable to recover his body's strength. This time, he was heavily injured after all. His divine world was also closed at this moment, and he could no longer sense it. He did not even have any autonomous energy, and arrived in this chaotic world in a daze. He could not open his eyes, and his mind power did not even exist. He could vaguely sense that although his nascent soul did not collapse, it was heavily injured and was in a deep slumber within his spiritual sea. He felt a weakness he had never felt before. What's going on? My situation is so bad. I'm practically worse than an ordinary person. No, I'm not an ordinary person. I'm even worse than a child. The only thing Lin Jun could sense was that his understanding of certain things was simply beyond the limits of his imagination. This also represented a person's potential, talent for martial arts. Back when he absorbed 3 universes' origin, it was far from what he was now. Through his rich experience, Lin Jun could confirm that his current state was definitely that of a genius among geniuses. A genius among geniuses, a freak among geniuses. If he used this kind of talent to practice martial arts, he would definitely be unbelievably fast. However, Lin Jun could not confirm his own situation. Without the divine world, divine power, and mind power, he, who had lost all his powers, was somewhat hesitant and insecure. After thinking about his current situation for a while, a wave of uncontrollable exhaustion came over him. As a martial artist, Lin Jun had long since stopped needing sleep. However, the drowsiness was so strong that he could not help but fall into a deep slumber. After some time passed in a daze, Lin Jun felt much more energetic. He could not help but want to move his body, and so he moved. He seemed to have hands and feet, but they were very weak. Just as he moved a few times, he vaguely heard a cry of surprise. Someone seemed to be shouting something not far away. Then Lin Jun felt his body being compressed and squeezed around him. Accompanied by a woman's cry, everything suddenly became clear. It's born, it's born. Congratulations, sir. Congratulations, madam. It's a young master. Then there was a commotion around him. Lin Jun felt like he was wrapped up by something and was being held in someone's arms. Lin Jun wanted to say something, but his voice was actually uncontrollable at this moment. He actually let out a loud cry. Then something warm and soft was stuffed into his mouth. Lin Jun instinctively moved his mouth, and a sweet liquid was injected into his mouth. At this moment, Lin Jun understood. Nirvana. This was true nirvana. The chaos green lotus seed carried his spiritual force consciousness and was reborn into a child. Furthermore, this rebirth was not just once. Nirvana 9 revolutions, which also meant that he had to go through 9 lifetimes of rebirth. 9 lifetimes of nirvana, rebirth through fire. Chapter 1358. The Andromeda Nebula is a huge galaxy next to the Sky River Empire. This place belongs to the Sanjiang Federation. About 6,000 years ago, there was a change in royal authority. The Blackwing Princess Zi Qinxia successfully restored her empire, killed the people who harmed her family in the past, and completely unified the Andromeda Nebula, turning it into a big empire. However, Zi Qinxia didn't seem to be obsessed with royal authority. After establishing the Andromeda Empire, she went out to gain experience. It is said that she went to the Yuan realm. Unless it is a matter of critical importance to the survival of the empire, Zi Qinxia will not return to the new territories. Even if she comes back sometimes, she will choose to go to the Milky Way instead of the Andromeda Nebula. The solar system in the Milky Way is currently the holy land of the entire Sanjiang Federation and the entire Fire Kirin Empire. It can even be said that it is the holy land of the entire new territories. Because a king once walked out from there, Lin Jun. In the entire new territories, Lin Jun has a resounding name, Divine Ancestor. Everyone here worships Lin Jun. Whether it is a commoner or a nobleman, they generally worship Lin Jun's portrait in their home. They burn incense and worship him every day. Even the galactic pirates who roam the galaxy will stick Lin Jun's portrait in their cockpits and worship him every day. Because Lin Jun's subordinates once raised a group of interstellar pirates, including the Black Pearl, which is currently displayed in an exhibition hall on Earth. Therefore, these interstellar pirates automatically recognize Lin Jun as their ancestor. From this, one can see the prestige of Lin Jun in the new territories. More than 2,000 years ago, the ancestor of the Lin family, Lin Jun's biological father, Lin Jun, after an internal discussion, felt that the foundation of the Lin family should be expanded. He let Lin Jun's 2 sons, Lin Ping and Linen, get married and have children one after another. The old man is old and has an infinite lifespan. He can no longer improve after reaching the divine transformation realm. So he naturally wants to see a house full of children and grandchildren. Su Mingwei and Ning agreed, and the brothers Lin Ping and Lin entered the marriage hall. Under Lin Lie's strong encouragement, the Lin clan rapidly developed. Every time a child reached marriageable age, regardless of gender, they would get married as soon as possible to produce the next generation. The Lin family's genes were naturally good. Moreover, they were now considered a big tree with deep roots. Naturally, there were countless people who wanted to climb up to them. It was also very easy to find a suitable marriage partner. In the beginning, the Lin family mainly developed in the primordial realm, but they could produce a new generation every 20 years. Later on, As the number of people in the family increased, they began to gradually enter the new territories. After all, the new territories was Lin Zhun's hometown. Here, Lin Zhun's reputation was even more resounding than in the primordial realm. How big could a clan develop in 2,000 years if they could multiply and multiply at will? This was a very difficult number to calculate, but it was undeniable that the Lin family's power had reached an unimaginable level. Even in the fairy empire of the Sanjiang Federation, the Lin family was well-deserved to be the #1 family. It was said that the empress of the fairy empire, Zi Qinxia, was once rescued by holy ancestor Lin Zhun, who encouraged the Lin family to enter the fairy empire and helped her stabilize her rule. Some people said that in Zi Qinxia's heart, she didn't care much about the fairy empire. Even if the fairy empire was handed over to the Lin family, she wouldn't even bat an eyelid. Some people even said that Zi Qinxia liked Lin Zhun, and her ultimate goal was to marry Lin Zhun. However, the Andromeda Nebula was full of war and chaos, and its rule wasn't as pervasive as the Sky River Empire. Many planets with life were still in a relatively backward state. For example, Wanghai Planet, located in the Twin Sun Galaxy. The territorial characteristics of Wanghai Planet are that half of it is mountainous, half of it is ocean, and there are few plains. The planet's volume is about 5 times that of Earth, and it can be regarded as a relatively large planet with life. However, the Twin Sun Galaxy is located in a remote corner of the Andromeda Galaxy, and its mineral resources are not rich. It has never been truly integrated into the Fairy Empire's civilization. This planet is also not truly unified, and there are 7 great empires on it. The Dahua Empire, located in the east, is ruled by the descendants of the Lin family. It's the 108th generation great-grandson of Lin Zhun's second son, Lin An. Not to mention relatives. Even if it's Lin An's great-grandson, Lin An can't remember him at all. Although he gave birth to many children, most of them were distributed outside. He himself has been accompanying his biological mother, and Ning, in the Yuan realm. This kind of kinship is separated by many layers, but after all, it's close to the Lin family, so it can be regarded as a part of the Lin family. The emperor of the Dahua Empire, named Lin Zhigao, is the 108th generation great-grandson of Lin An. Although this person has no chance to go to the Yuan realm to see the old master, he is a very proud person, proud of his Lin family bloodline. On this barren planet, he must maintain the orthodoxy of his empire. Some of the meritorious officials who helped him establish the empire were rewarded by him, and some of the more meritorious ones were also given the surname Lin. When he first came here, many people did not submit to his rule. One of his brothers who fought with him was later given the title of King Equal. This person originally did not have a surname, but Lin Zhigao gave him the surname Lin. The King Equal has been passed down for 3 generations, and the current king is called Lin Xia. Although Lin Xia was a prince, he was not obsessed with martial arts. His family did not have any profound martial arts inheritance. In fact, Lin Zhigao was afraid that the emperor equal to one-word emperor would threaten his position, so he did not want to teach him any profound martial arts. Lin Xia loves poetry and books even more, and usually asks people to call him sir. The king only has one wife, and the couple loves each other dearly, but they did not have a child for many years until 9 months ago. After 10 months of pregnancy, she gave birth to a son in one morning. When the wife gave birth and the son was just born, people discovered the green lotus light flashing on the child's body, which shocked Lin Xia. In Lin Xia's opinion, the main reason why the king equal can be passed down to this day is because there is no threat to Lin Zhigao's royal rule. The king family is willing to be ordinary and not be a threat to the royal power, in exchange for a lifetime of peace. In his heart, he does not hope for his son to have any great achievements. So what if he has great achievements? Could it be that he can threaten the Lin family's legitimacy? Lin Xia knows that it is definitely a dream. So when this son was born, although there was a strange phenomenon, he ordered everyone to keep quiet and forbid anyone from discussing this matter. In order to let this son be ordinary, he specially named his son Lin Fan, hoping that he will live an ordinary life and live a peaceful life as an ordinary person. The matter of Lin Fan being born with the green lotus light was leaked out a little, and the current king Lin Jigao felt uneasy, so he specially sent people to investigate. But here, Lin Fan behaves like an ordinary baby without any abnormalities. Lin Jigao's heart was slightly relieved, but he secretly ordered people to monitor Lin Fan's performance. After that, Lin Fan grew until he was 7 years old and looked no different from an ordinary child, which made Lin Jigao feel relieved and withdraw the people monitoring him. However, Lin Xiao's heart is not at ease. This son of Lin Fan's performance is a little too mature. Many times, his unintentional behavior makes Lin Xia feel that he is not facing a child, but a mountain. Lin Xia rubbed his eyes, but felt that it was an illusion. If possible, he really wants Lin Fan to stay at home peacefully for the rest of his life. But the laws of China state that regardless of gender, after the age of 7, must enter school. Chapter 1359. Dehua's schools were not the kind that only focused on studying. Instead, they taught both literature and martial arts. Literature only taught some simple language and knowledge. Most of it taught martial arts. When a child was 7 years old, they would enter the school for the first test to determine if they could become a warrior apprentice. Warrior, general, god of war, the 3 levels of mortal realm, core, meteor, comet, and the 3 levels of star realm were the basic classifications on planet Wanghai. As for the comet level and above, they had never appeared on this planet. Of course, there was also a special profession, which was the spirit reader master. However, there were very few children who were qualified to become psychic apprentices. There were just too few of them. Today was the first day of school in Dehua's capital, Jade Drop Peak Civil and Military School. Jade Drop Peak was a mountain that was 1,000 meters above sea level. It was lush all year round, and there were waterfalls all over the mountain. The civil and military school at the foot of the mountain was a retro building. Many experts on planet Wanghai graduated from this school. This civil and military school was founded by Lin Jigao. After 100 years of development, it was already the top school in Dehua. There were no commoners who could enter this school. They were all children of royalty. On the first day of school, carriages filled the main road at the foot of the mountain. Each carriage had a family emblem on it, representing the identity of the carriage owner. Usually, these carriage owners were people who ran amok. However, today, at the civil and military school, they could only line up obediently. Whoever dared to behave atrociously in front of the school founded by His Majesty must be tired of living. Near the entrance of the school, the owners of 2 carriages were talking. One of them was Dehua's Grand Marshal, Hu Zheng. Today, he was here to send his second son, Hu Feng, to school. The other person was the Prime Minister, Kong Fong. Today, he was here to send his youngest daughter, Kong Qianqian, to school. Hu Zheng was a valiant warrior. He was now a level 3 meteor super expert. His strength was one of the best in planet Wanghai. Although his second son, Hu Feng, was only 7 years old, he was tall and strong. He was comparable to an 11 or 12-year-old child. However, there was a hint of impetuousness in his eyes. This was a common problem among the children of high officials and nobles. Kong Fong was a level 9 core. Although he was not as strong as Hu Zheng, he was a powerful spirit reader master. His daughter, Kong Qianqian, was a delicate little girl. Hu Zheng and Kong Fong were chatting at the door. Ha ha, Kong Xiang, I've heard that the quality of this batch of children is very high, especially the little girl from your family. It's said that she has the potential to be a spirit reader. Her future is limitless. Marshal Hu, you flatter me. My daughter is just a girl. So what if her aptitude is better? In the future, she will have to marry someone, unlike the son of Marshal Hu. In the future, the son will inherit the father's business, galloping on the battlefield, and will be able to establish an unparalleled meritorious service for our empire. Sigh, that's not right. Now that we are connected to the dimensional universe, we have learned from the dimensional universe that there is a bigger and wider world beyond this world. It is said that the ruler of this Andromeda Nebula is a woman. Kong Fong snorted coldly. She's just a woman who never appears. What qualifications does she have to be the master of such a large galaxy? If you ask me, only the Lin family is fit to be the true master. Hu Zheng nodded in agreement. The Lin family was a legend, and no one dared to disrespect them. If one offended the Lin family, no matter who it was, they could be directly punished. No one dared to say a word. Perhaps some people were dissatisfied, but they could only think about it in their hearts. No one dared to say it out loud. At this moment, Hu Zheng's son, Hu Feng, suddenly spoke. That's not entirely true. If it was the Lin family of His Majesty, there would be nothing to say. However, there are some people who use the name of the Lin family to intimidate others. I don't like people like that. Children from large families already knew a lot of things at the age of 7. They had their own little circles and their own likes and dislikes. Hu Zheng hurriedly covered his son's mouth. What nonsense are you saying? Is Lin Zhen something we can discuss? As he spoke, Hu Zheng explained to Kong Fong. My son is lacking in discipline. Please don't laugh at him. Before Kong Fong could say anything, Kong Qianqian interjected. Hu Feng is right. Take that Lin fan, for example. Every time we play together, he always looks down on us. He's just a member of the Lin family. What's so great about him? Everyone has agreed that we must humiliate him this time. Yes, I'm talking about him. Hu Feng was still struggling. The two imperial generals looked at each other and secretly sighed in relief. As long as it wasn't slandering the imperial family, it wasn't a big problem. The title of Emperor Equal was conferred when the empire was first established. His Majesty had removed it a little, but it was said that the title would last for 3 generations. Lin Xia would be the 3rd generation. If this Lin fan wasn't good at literature or martial arts, it might be just what His Majesty wanted. The Emperor alongside the Emperor has arrived. Following the guard announcement, a carriage didn't need to line up. It went straight to the front row. The surrounding people all lowered their heads. No matter how noble they were, they had to back down when they saw the Emperor Equal. Not for anything else, but because of the surname Lin, he could do whatever he wanted in the Dahua Empire. The carriage pulled by 4 yellow horses slowly came to a stop in front of the general's carriage. The curtain opened, and Lin Xia walked down with his son. General Hu, General Kong, what a coincidence. Since it's already your turn, I won't cut the line. I'll just wait behind you. How can that be? Your Highness, please go first, the two said politely. That's good. Lin Xia didn't have much ability, but he knew how to protect himself. He came here today just to go through the motions. He didn't expect Lin Fan to perform well. Lin Xia held his son's hand and said, Little Fan, go play with the 2 little brothers and sisters. I'll chat with the 2 uncles. At this time, Hu Zheng and Kong Fong also looked at Lin Xia's son. As far as they knew, Lin Xia's son was born with a strange appearance. It was said that he was protected by the green lotus treasure light. Many people thought that this child was extraordinary. Lin Xia had tried his best to hide this matter, but in the end, he couldn't hide it, and it spread. His Majesty was also vigilant and secretly investigated for many years. However, nothing special happened in the end, so the matter was left unsettled. But today, to the 2 of them, this child did indeed look extraordinary. He was born with good looks. His lips were red, his teeth were white, and he was extraordinarily handsome, especially his eyes. They were even more dazzling than the stars. The 2 of them had seen countless people and had seen all kinds of children. However, this child's appearance had already surpassed everyone they had seen. Just by looking at him, his talent was definitely extraordinary. It was said that the Lin family had good genes because they had the bloodline of the divine ancestor Lin Zhen. However, in their eyes, the royal family's talent was far inferior to Lin Fan's. The 2 of them looked at each other and became cautious. Chapter 1360. He Tu went back on his word. He Tu said that it would be the last time he would ask for votes after the last monthly vote. However, he asked for votes again today. There was no other reason other than the fact that more and more readers were supporting He Tu during this period of time. This made me very happy, very happy. Asking for votes was an attitude. It was a responsible attitude towards one's work. It was an expression of one's love for writing. People who had no desires might not have too much motivation to write. At the very least, it was hard to guarantee a certain amount of chapters. Therefore, asking for votes was a good thing. Therefore, I went back on my word. Thank you for your recent tips. Other than Black Soil's Cat Eyes Girl, who tipped me, there's also My Heart is Red Too, who tipped me 2,000 coins. I'm not Xiaoming, Heaven's Howl, who tipped me 1,000 coins, The New Era. I just want to read free books. Unfortunately, there's no free books, DGCYC, who tipped me 500 coins each. Can I send you home? And 300 coins. Thank you for everyone's support. Hey2 will work hard to come up with a follow-up plot to repay everyone. I will also follow the agreement when I open the book. I will add chapters for every reader who tipped a branch lord. Chapter 1361. Following the group of children, Lin Jun entered the inner section of the college. There were 10 children in each group. These children deliberately squeezed Lin Jun to the end. It was obvious that they wanted to exclude him. Lin Jun was also happy to be free. He didn't compete with these children and followed them. The parents also flocked in and came to the test field. They automatically surrounded the area to watch their children's performance. Seeing that this group had the emperor equal to the emperor, the current prime minister, the grand marshal of the military, and the vice president of the college personally came to preside over the test. Greetings, Prince Lin, Minister Kong, and Marshal Hu. The few of them returned the greeting. The vice president had a very high status. He was a super powerhouse at level 8 Meteor Realm. He had even taught them not to ignore him. The Emerald Peak Civil and Military College has been established for more than 100 years. It has nurtured countless talents and powerhouses for the Hua. For example, Minister Kong and Marshal, who are proud students of our college. Kong Fong and Hu Zheng also smiled. Strictly speaking, the vice president was their teacher. I'm sure you're clear about the test rules of our civil and military college. However, I still have to explain it to the children. The vice president came to the front of the 10 children. Behind him were 2 test props. The prop on the left was a humanoid striking device. It was slightly taller than the children. There was a mercury column and a display screen on it. It was used to test the speed and strength of a strike, as well as the final score. This tool is a warrior apprentice's detector. It can detect the speed and strength of your punches, so that when you start, you can use your fastest and greatest strength to punch here. When you finish, it will end. At that time, the detector will give you a score based on your performance during the test period. 100 is a perfect score. Those who score more than 50 will be qualified to become a warrior apprentice and can practice martial arts in the future. The children's faces were filled with excitement. Becoming a martial artist was a path to heaven. Not to mention the huge strength and benefits that came with becoming a martial artist. Just the fact that it could prolong one's life was enough to drive people crazy. Hu Feng said gruffly, "Vice President, what if I break this thing with one punch?" Before the vice president could answer, Hu Zheng had already reprimanded his son. "Silly boy, what nonsense are you talking about? This tester is capable of withstanding the attack of a peak warlord. You're just a weakling. Go back and train for another 8 to 10 years before boasting again. You are not allowed to interrupt." It's fine, it's fine. Children speak without fear." The vice president waved his hand, not minding Hu Zheng's interruption. Instead, he continued to introduce the item on the right. It was a circular crystal ball. This is called the psychic sensing sphere. I'm sure some of you have the potential to be a psychic. Your family has also told you how to inject your psychic force. You can inject your psychic force into it. As long as you have the potential to be a psychic, the sphere will glow and change color, showing your psychic force and elemental sensing power. When the time comes, there will also be a score. Those who score more than 50 points will pass. Remember, use your full strength. The higher your score, the greater your potential in the future. Do you all understand? Understood. The group of little brats shouted loudly, each and every one of them very excited. They all knew that today's test would determine their future. If he succeeded, his future would be bright. If he failed, he would be abandoned by his family and become a cripple. All right, I've said what I wanted to say. I hope all of you can achieve good results. After the vice president finished speaking, he got up and left to chat with a few people in the forest. Behind him, the instructor in charge of monitoring came up and started to read the names with a straight face. Level Warrior Test. A slightly plump boy walked over, trembling with fear. Use your full strength to attack this rubber man. 10 seconds, start. The boy shouted loudly, his pair of small fists punching the rubber man violently. Bang, bang, bang. The father, who was watching from afar, frowned slightly. He was not very satisfied with his son's performance. Lin Jun watched from behind for a while and shook his head slightly. This boy was a little nervous. It was probably because it was an official test that he did not use his full strength. The mercury column jumped with the level of attack, but the amplitude was very small. When the 10 seconds were up, the boy was already sweating all over. Using his full strength to attack wildly for 10 seconds was indeed a huge burden on a child. Soon, the score appeared on the screen. Speed score 21, strength score 29, overall score 50. Pass. Yay, I passed. Ha, Dad, I passed. The plump boy ran over excitedly. His father also hugged his son excitedly. Being able to become a warrior apprentice meant that he could practice martial arts in the future and inherit the family business. Next, Li Xian, start the test. A slightly skinny boy walked over and started his test. His speed was a little higher than the standard, but his strength was much lower. His punches were a little soft. In the end, his score was only 41 and he was eliminated. Although the child was disappointed, he did not feel much. His father also had a lonely face. He simply pulled Li Xian away. This child would probably be an ordinary person in the future. After Li Xian was eliminated, a few more children took the test. One of them passed the warrior apprentice test with a score of 55. The rest failed. Hu Feng, warrior apprentice test, start. The son of the Grand Marshal of the military, Hu Zheng, started the test. Hu Zheng looked at his son with a hint of pride on his face. Hu Zheng, was an expert. As his son, his genes naturally couldn't be too bad. Even compared to the current Lin family of the royal family, he was confident that his genes were better. Although the Lin family had the bloodline of the divine ancestor, it had been passed down for thousands of years. The power of the bloodline was already extremely thin. Hu Feng walked in front of the testing machine. With a shout, he started his attack. His footsteps were nimble and his punches were fast. At such a young age, he had already shown great potential. Pung, pung, pung. A series of popping sounds were very dense. When it ended, Hu Feng retracted his fist and retreated. He was only slightly out of breath. Speed score 38, strength score 42, overall score 80, excellent. Scores above 80 were excellent. Hu Feng jumped up excitedly. However, he did not run back to his father's side immediately. Instead, he walked proudly in front of Lin Jun. Lin Fan, have you seen what a real man is? The legend of the Green Lotus protection that you heard before was nothing more than a rumor spread by some bored people. You will never know what true power is. Lin Jun smiled faintly. Your results are not bad. However, if you don't become a psychic, you will at most be in the early stage of the star realm. You can't even beat a little girl. What is there to be proud of? A burst of cheers erupted from behind. Hu Feng turned around. It turned out that Kong Qianqian had just taken the test. Spiritual power score 43. Elemental sensing score 40. Overall score 83. A psychic with 83 points was much more valuable than a warrior with 80 points. Chapter 1362. Lin Xiao watched as her son walked up to the testing machine. Based on Lin Fan's performance over the years, Lin Xiao was certain that Lin Fan would never pass the test because she had never seen him show any interest in martial arts. The legacy of the emperor's equal was probably going to be lost. Hu Zheng saw through Lin Xiao's emotions and purposely added salt to the wound. Don't worry, Your Highness. I see that your son is smart and smart. He must be a hero among men. Moreover, he has the surname Lin. I'm sure this test won't be a problem for him. Kong Fong also added, the emperor's equal used martial arts to help his majesty ascend the throne. I see that Lin Fan is quite similar to his ancestors. I just heard that he's going to take both the warrior and psychic tests. He'll definitely amaze the world. The surrounding people also saw through the general's intentions and agreed. For a moment, they praised Lin Fan as if he was peerless in the heavens. Their goal was to put him on a pedestal. In this way, when he fell down later, He could completely trample the face of the emperor's equal into the mud and use the disappointment to degrade it to the point that it was worthless. Perhaps he could use this opportunity to take down the title of emperor's equal. Lin Xia's mood was getting worse. How could she not see through these people's evil intentions? After losing the title of emperor's equal, there would be many people who would take advantage of her in the future. Perhaps her family would fall. But what could she do about her son? Surviving in the future was Lin Xia's only wish. Peace is a blessing. Peace is a blessing. Lin Xia bitterly responded to everyone's praises. Lin Zhen came to the warrior testing machine. Lin Zhen had some experience in dealing with this kind of puppet tool. This kind of tool was relatively old. It was a product produced in the Fire Qilin Empire. Later on, it was gradually eliminated because of its drawbacks. But he didn't expect to see it on this remote Wanghai planet. If possible, Lin Zhen wanted to give a passing score. It would be fine as long as he could pass. But seeing Lin Xia being pressured by the crowd, Lin Zhen had a different idea. He didn't have much time in this life. Maybe one day, he would awaken the Chaos Lotus and it would be over. Before that, he didn't want this family to be implicated because of him. He also didn't want people with ulterior motives to succeed. Since that was the case, then let's do it. As the instructor shouted to start, Lin Zhen made his move. His movements weren't very fast, but the moment his fist struck, there was a small hidden force. This was a technique for exerting force. Using a spiral force to penetrate the interior of the doll, it could create internal destructive force. At the same time, it could also allow the scoring system to give a high score. Both of his fists came in quick succession. His speed was neither fast nor slow, but the puppet let out a series of dull thuds. With his current early-stage War God level, he would be able to score full marks with just a little bit of effort. Moreover, even Hu Zheng and the others were unable to see through such a small trick. Speed 50, Strength 50, overall score 100. Wow, amazing. This is the first time a child scored a perfect warrior score since the school was founded. That's not right. Is there a mistake somewhere? It looks like it's just an ordinary game. How could it get a perfect score? That's right. There's nothing special about him. There must be something wrong with the machine. Explain it to me. It doesn't count. It doesn't count. There's something wrong with the machine. The surrounding people were shouting. There were also instructors who ran over to check the machine. It would be troublesome if the machine was broken. Lin Xiao looked at her son Lin Fan in a daze. Slowly, a strange look appeared in her eyes. Could it be that her son was really a genius? Lin Jin didn't care about those people checking if the machine was broken. Instead, he walked in front of the crystal ball. As soon as the instructor said begin, Lin Jun pressed one hand on the crystal ball. This crystal ball could only withstand the mental strength of a peak bronze rank. Lin Jun was already at the beginning of silver rank. He directly used the mental strength of an evil spirit all. Explode. Pung. The crystal ball exploded. The scoring system gave a score. Mental strength 50, elemental sensitivity 50, specific elemental attributes. Unable to define. Overall score 100, perfect. The crowd who had been questioning the warrior's equipment were once again dumbfounded. Another perfect score, and it was a perfect score for the psychic test. No one had ever achieved a perfect score for the warrior test since the school was founded, let alone the psychic test. It would be a miracle if one could pass. Even if it was perfect, why was it that the specific elemental attributes couldn't be defined? Could it be that this Lin Fan was proficient in all elemental attributes? Or was he completely clueless? You should at least give an explanation. It's broken. The machine is definitely broken. As a mid-gold ranked psychic, I swear on my name that even if I went up for the test, this wouldn't happen. This time, Kong Fong was flustered and exasperated. His daughter Kong Qianqian had already performed very well. How could he accept that her limelight was stolen? Moreover, the score was so unreliable. He would never admit that Lin Fan had that kind of standard. At this time, the results of the warrior testing machine were out. The inside of the testing machine was already broken, as if it had been torn apart from the inside by some force. Looking at the condition of the machine, it should have been damaged not long ago. See, I told you that the machine is broken. The warrior testing machine is broken, and the psychic crystal ball is also broken. This result can't be counted. It's invalid. Hu Zheng shouted. Lin Xia saw her son's performance and was so surprised that she couldn't speak. Just as she was about to celebrate with her son, she heard the doubts of the empire's generals. Lin Xia, who had always been a nice person, couldn't take it anymore. She pulled Lin Jin to her side and said to Hu Zheng and Kong Fong, "The two of you are the empire's generals. How can you speak so rudely? The school has its own rules. No one can change it. You said that the machine is broken. Does that mean that your children's results can't be counted as well? Do you want them all to be invalid? Ridiculous." Hu Zheng and Kong Fong were speechless. Yes, if Lin Jun's results weren't counted, then what about their children's? If they didn't count, they wouldn't have a chance to enter the school. Lin Xia's face became colder. Although you have high positions, don't forget that this empire belongs to the Lin family. And I, the emperor equal, am surnamed Lin. You are not. Her words were very serious. No matter how dissatisfied the two were, they had to bow their heads. Lin Xia turned to the vice president. Can my son's results be counted? Or is it that your school can't even produce a qualified machine? Facing the angry emperor equal, the vice president didn't dare to refute. He could only nod. Yes, yes. This group's results are all true and valid. Lin Xia was relieved. She hugged her son with tears of excitement in her eyes. Good. My son is the best. Lin Jun felt very awkward in Lin Xia's arms. Chapter 1363. In the Dehua Palace, the current emperor, Lin Zhigao, was inspecting the equipment that was damaged in the academy. Lin Zhigao was also a level 9 meteor expert and had a deep understanding of martial arts. After carefully inspecting the broken dolls, Lin Zhigao fell into deep thought. This equipment was damaged by a hidden force attack. To be able to use hidden force silently, one had to be at least a warlord expert. Even a normal warlord wouldn't be able to do it. To be able to hide from everyone present, one had to be at least a warlord. Could it be that the little brat of the Lin family, Lin Fan, was a warlord? The possibility of this was very low. However, when he thought about how Lin Fan was protected by the Green Lotus Treasure Light when he was born, Lin Zhigao became suspicious. The emperor's equal was the only family in Dehua that could threaten the imperial power. When they were conquering the world, the emperor's equal contributed a lot and had a high reputation among the people. Lin Zhigao was very worried about the emperor's mansion. If the fourth generation of the Lin family wasn't good at martial arts, Lin Zhigao could revoke the title of emperor. However, if Lin Fan was a genius, then the title couldn't be revoked. Green Lotus Treasure Light protecting the body, destroying the dolls, shattering the crystal balls. After thinking about these things, Lin Zhigao felt that there were two possibilities. The first was that Lin Fan was really a genius and had hidden his strength well. However, he felt that this possibility wasn't high. After all, Lin Fan had nothing to do all day and never cultivated. Could it be that he was naturally proficient in martial arts and telekinesis? Logically speaking, this was impossible. However, the facts in front of him made him suspicious. How did these things break? Could it be that there was someone secretly helping Lin Fan? This was the second possibility. Lin Fan had an expert protecting him. Find someone to observe Lin Fan. If he has any abnormal behavior, inform me immediately. Lin Zhigao had some vague ideas in his mind. Although Lin Fan's performance in the entrance test caused some commotion, it didn't have a good reputation. There was news that Lin Fan had cheated during the entrance exam and deliberately damaged the machine to get full marks. However, she was actually an idiot. She looked good on the outside, but was useless. The news spread like wildfire. Many people swore that they had seen Lin Fan cheat. After entering the academy, the students all regarded Lin Fan as the god of plague, and all of them kept a respectful distance from him. Lin Fan wasn't unhappy about being ostracized by the crowd. He was a special existence in the academy. The surname Lin had its advantages. Lin Fan was a maverick in the academy. She didn't participate in any training or classes, nor did she participate in any tests or examinations. She also didn't interact with the other students. Every day, Other than going home to accompany her parents, she would sleep in the academy. He didn't have any friends in the academy. This kind of performance further solidified his reputation as trash. Over time, no one took Lin Fan seriously. There is even a rumor in the academy that Lin Fan wouldn't be able to pass the coming-of-age graduation exam. At that time, the emperor's mansion would cease to exist. In the blink of an eye, 7 years had passed. It was almost time for Chui Drop Peak Academy's graduation exam. 7 years had passed. The child who had entered the academy had become a 14-year-old adult. In Dahua, a 14-year-old could get engaged. Lin Fan had become an adult for 2 months. Lin Xia was currently arranging a marriage for him. The bride was none other than the daughter of the current prime minister, the flower of Chui Drop Peak Academy, Kong Chanqian. After becoming an adult, Kong Chanqian had become more and more beautiful. She had just become an adult, but she had already become a late-stage bronze spirit reader. Her strength had also reached the level of a beginner warlord. Such a woman was coveted by too many people in the capital. Even one of Lin Jigao's imperial grandsons took the initiative to ask the emperor to grant him Kong Chanqian's hand in marriage. This imperial grandson was usually favored by the emperor. Many people speculated that Lin Jigao would pass the throne directly to this imperial grandson after 100 years. However, Lin Jigao refused without hesitation. He didn't grant his beloved grandson a marriage. The reason was that the emperor couldn't force others. This matter mainly depended on the Kong family's decision. They could choose their husband's family. Some people said that Kong Chanqian and Hu Feng might secretly have feelings for each other. The two families would become in-laws sooner or later. However, this was just a rumor. There were still many guesses about Kong Chanqian's future husband. However, no one thought that it would be the emperor's mansion. Lin Xia and her wife, Yu Qingqing, were also worried sick about Lin Fan's marriage. The older their son grew, the more they couldn't see through him. A 14-year-old boy looked no different from an adult. He was tall and handsome. His appearance was indeed a dragon among men. However, their son's unmotivated attitude made them feel helpless. The husband and wife felt that perhaps after their child had a wife, he would slowly develop a sense of enterprise and responsibility. He would be much better in the future. The husband and wife had carefully selected a candidate for his wife. They still felt that Kong Chanqian was the most suitable. In their hearts, Lin Fan was naturally the best. He was born with the Green Lotus protection and had perfect grades in school. Although he was a little lazy, there weren't many girls who were worthy of him. Kong Chanqian's appearance and ability were suitable. Moreover, her background was good. She might become Lin Fan's assistant in the future. At first, they thought that their son could be ordinary. However, since he wasn't ordinary, they had to choose the best. When Lin Xia proposed marriage to the prime minister, they thought that Kong Feng might refuse. Lin Xia even prepared a lot of excuses. However, they didn't expect Kong Feng to agree immediately. The words that Lin Xia had prepared didn't even come in use. Since Lin Xiaoxia and Kong Feng had agreed, the marriage was basically set. Whether the two children agreed or not didn't matter at all. When the news spread, it shocked many people. Most people felt sorry for Kong Chanqian. How could a girl with such outstanding looks and strength be married to a useless young master like Lin Fan? It was like a flower stuck in cow dung. What a waste. When Kong Chanqian heard the news, she had a big fight with her father at home. However, Kong Feng's attitude was unusually firm this time. He directly ordered for Kong Chanqian to be locked up. After a few days of stalemate, Kong Chanqian finally compromised and agreed to her father's request. Only then was she released and allowed to return to school. As for Lin Fan, one of the parties involved, he didn't care. Everything was up to his parents. In Chui Di Feng Academy, there was still a month before the graduation exam. In the bushes behind the academy's mountain, Lin Jun held a grass stick in his mouth and was looking up at the sky. The clouds in the sky were moving and the breeze was gentle. It was quite pleasant. After becoming an adult for 2 months, Lin Jun had already rushed from the War God realm to the middle stage of the core realm. When he graduated, Lin Jun felt that he could even reach the peak of the core realm. While he was lost in thought, he suddenly heard footsteps behind him. Chapter 1364. Lin Jun did not need to raise his head to know that the person who came was Kong Qianqian. Now that both parents had agreed, the only thing left was to hold the engagement ceremony. However, Lin Jun knew that Kong Qianqian did not want to be with him. She was probably here to cause trouble for him. Lin Jun did not care about these things at all. It was all up to fate. In this life, he wanted to live a peaceful life and did not want to have any emotional entanglements. The reason why he agreed to the engagement with his father was to make his parents happy. Kong Qianqian walked to Lin Jun's side. However, she did not fly into a rage as expected. Instead, she sat down beside Lin Jun. A 14-year-old girl was in the prime of her life. Her long-term training had made her stand tall and outstanding. She was well-developed and was not inferior to an adult woman. A faint fragrance entered his nose. It was pleasant. After some consideration, Kong Qianqian said, "Lin Fan, do you think we are suitable?" Lin Jun did not look at her and replied indifferently, "It's our parents' orders. Just listen to them. It doesn't matter if we are suitable or not." Lin Jun's indifferent attitude angered Kong Qianqian. She came to talk to Lin Jun because she wanted Lin Jun to give up. As a girl, she wanted to maintain her poise. In her heart, she thought that Lin Jun must have begged her family to marry her. After all, she was such an outstanding girl. However, she did not expect Lin Jun to have such an attitude. Was she, Kong Qianqian, not worthy of his attention? Kong Qianqian stood up in anger. "Lin Fan, Kong Qianqian, have been the most outstanding girl ever since I was young. I'm not a simple-minded girl. I have long known the path I want to take. My future husband will be a dragon among men. He will be a hero. If he's not such a person, I'd rather not marry him. As for you, other than your looks, you're not suitable in any other aspect. We're not compatible at all. Do you understand what I mean?" Lin Jun still didn't get up. He just changed the angle of the straw in his mouth. "My meaning is very clear. It doesn't matter if she's compatible or not. The main thing is that this is what the family wants. I have no objections." Good. You must know the attitude of our parents. They want to officially get engaged after we graduate. But do you think you can graduate successfully like this? That's my business. A layer of frost covered Kong Qianqian's face. In reality, she did have a good impression of Lin Fan. This time, after agreeing to her family's request, she also thought about the possibility of marrying Lin Fan. Lin Fan's looks were outstanding, and he was indeed the type that girls liked. Moreover, he had a few amazing performances. If she worked hard, she might be able to succeed in her career. It would be reasonable for her to marry him. But first, Lin Fan had to value her enough and work hard enough. This time, she came to see his performance. She didn't expect this result. "Lin Fan, since you're so stubborn, don't blame me. I hope you have a perfect engagement gift." After saying that, Kong Qianqian turned around and left without any reluctance. Lin Jun wriggled her body and found a comfortable position in the haystack. Under the warm afternoon sun, she fell asleep. There was still a week before graduation. The vice president gathered all the students and stated that all students must attend. Lin Jun, who usually didn't participate in group activities, was also there. It was probably to announce the rules of the graduation exam. After gathering, when the vice president appeared, everyone's eyes lit up. Beside the vice president stood a little girl with bright eyes and white teeth. Kong Qianqian was already beautiful enough, but this girl surpassed Kong Qianqian by a lot. She wore a gorgeous dress and had an elegant temperament. One look, and one could tell that she came from an extraordinary background. Facing this fairy-like girl, many people felt ashamed of their inferiority and didn't dare to look into her beautiful eyes. More importantly, when the vice president appeared with the little girl, the emperor of the empire, Lin Zhigao, accompanied them. This was a big deal. After Lin Zhigao became the emperor, he rarely appeared in public. Today, he came to Emerald Drop Peak Academy. This made everyone feel that the little girl's identity was extraordinary. Everyone greeted Lin Zhigao. Lin Zhigao waved his hand and whispered something to the little girl. Then, he went to the back and sat down. Obviously, he didn't want to say anything. The vice president coughed softly. There are two reasons why I gathered everyone here. One is about the graduation exam. Everyone pricked up their ears to listen. But before I announce the rules of the graduation exam, I'd like to introduce a new student. Everyone's gaze fell on the excessively beautiful little girl. Everyone has gone through the coming-of-age ceremony a few days ago. I'm sure you know where we are. Planet Wanghai belongs to the Fairy Empire. It was founded by the Emperor Zi Qinxia 6,000 years ago. And the little girl beside me is from the imperial family of the Fairy Empire. Her name is... What's your name? I'm Ziying, the little girl said in a pleasant voice. Yes, Ziying. She came all the way from the fairy planet. Everyone, please take care of her in the future. Welcome. Everyone applauded. The applause was intense. People with good looks were always welcomed wherever they went. With Ziying here, Kong Qianqian's title as the campus belle would have to be given up. Okay, Ziying, you can join us. There were no empty seats in the front row. Only Lin Jun had an empty seat in the back. Ziying walked to Lin Jun's side and stood still. Ziying glanced at Lin Jun and smiled. Lin Jun's eyes narrowed slightly. This Ziying was a little interesting. After introducing the new student, Lin Zhigao left. He specially sent Ziying to the academy to show that he valued her. After all, she was from the imperial family of the Fairy Empire. How could a local emperor like him not value her? After Lin Zhigao left, the vice president began to announce the rules. In this graduation exam, your future warrior or psychic level will be determined based on your results. The imperial family will also give you corresponding status based on your results. The graduation exam will be held in the Emerald Drop Peak. We've already marked out a territory there. There are a lot of demon beasts there. Most of them are warrior level, a few are warlord level, and a few are warlord level. You guys will be safe there. Remember, don't be reckless. Under such circumstances, there will occasionally be casualties, so you must be careful when you enter. When the time comes, your results will be determined based on the spoils you obtain from killing monsters. The students nodded, indicating that they understood. Their future would be decided by this graduation exam. After the vice president finished his announcement and left, the crowd was in an uproar. Chapter 1365. The people of planet Wanghai could only be described as country bumpkins, especially those who had just reached adulthood and obtained the identity of the dimensional universe. They were actually full of yearning for the vast world outside. Usually, no one from the Fairy Empire would come here, so no one would ask even if they wanted to. Now that someone had finally come, and it was a super beauty, they were all excited. The crowd rushed forward and looked like they were about to drown Ziying. Stop! Ziying finally spoke. Her voice had a strong deterrent force that made these people involuntarily stop in their tracks. Spirit reader. She's actually a spirit reader. Lin Jun, who was about to leave, stopped in his tracks. Kong Qianqian also stopped and looked at Ziying, who had spoken. Just this move alone proved that Ziying's spirit power was at least at the early stage of the gold level. A young girl who had just reached adulthood was already at the early stage of the gold level. This was too much of genius. Ziying stopped these people with a shout. Then, she looked around with her bright and beautiful eyes, carrying a warning look. You'd better understand one thing. I'm from the royal family of the Fairy Empire. Even the emperor of your empire is nothing more than a small lord in the Fairy Empire. He doesn't even have the right to enter the throne room. His status is thousands of miles away from mine. And you're just a bunch of unruly people. What are you trying to do by surrounding me? If you don't move away, I'll kill your entire family. Her shout with her spirit power deterrent force made the crowd dizzy and they retreated awkwardly. Ziying walked out of the crowd and passed by Lin Jun. Lin Jun looked at her side profile and didn't say anything. However, Ziying stopped when she reached him. After sizing up Lin Jun a few times, Ziying suddenly asked, "What's your surname?" "My surname is Lin. Are you the descendant of the divine ancestor Lin Jun?" This question stunned Lin Jun for a moment. Then, he smiled and shook his head. Ziying didn't say anything else. She looked deeply at Lin Jun and walked out of the crowd. After Ziying disappeared, the crowd was filled with heavy breathing. These people were a little breathless from Ziying's aura. How terrifying. With her here, I don't even dare to speak. She's beautiful, but too fierce. I still think our Kong Qianqian is more pleasing to the eye. Don't talk nonsense. She's a member of the royal family. Even His Majesty isn't as influential as her. The crowd gradually dispersed. Lin Zhen also went back. On his way back, he saw Kong Qianqian and Hu Feng leaving together. In the palace, Lin Zhigao was talking to someone. Has everything been arranged? Yes, Your Majesty. They are all ferocious beasts that were caught from the outside. Furthermore, they have been starving for quite some time. They are definitely not something that ordinary students can withstand. Stupid. If he was, of course, there wouldn't be a problem. But what if he wasn't an ordinary student? Is your setup enough? His subordinate didn't dare to raise his head after being reprimanded. Yes. I will do it immediately. Remember, since you've decided to make a move, then you can't hesitate in the slightest. This matter is of great importance, and you absolutely can't afford to be careless. The shadow quickly retreated. Lin Zhigao silently looked out of the window. If he succeeded this time, his throne would be secured. The day of the graduation exam finally arrived. All the students were gathered and sent to the back mountain of Dikui Peak. A large enclosure had already been set up here, and there were many beasts inside. There were many types of beasts, but their strength wasn't too strong. They were about the same as the mutated beasts during the Earth's God transformation. Although these students weren't very old, most of them already had the strength of a warlord. If they worked together, they could even kill a warlord-level beast. Moreover, the instructor told them that the strongest beast here was only at the warlord level. Every student who entered had to stay in the enclosure for a full month. They also had to obtain a certain amount of spoils before they could be considered to have successfully graduated. The spoils could be a part of a beast or something like a bone. Many parents also followed the students to the entrance of the enclosure. Lin Xia and Yu Qingqing came to Lin Fan. Yu Qingqing held Lin Fan's hand with tears in her eyes. My son has never been to such a dangerous place since he was young. Your Highness, can we not let Lin Fan participate in the graduation exam? Those beasts don't know their limits. It wouldn't be good if they hurt Lin Fan. Lin Xiao walked over and gently comforted her wife. You don't have to worry about these things. I've already repeatedly told Lin Fan not to go to dangerous places. I've also given him a few protective treasures. He even showed me that they can be used. This time, his goal isn't to kill as many beasts as possible. He just wants to get through this period of time and come out alive. This time, the husband and wife had indeed prepared a lot for Lin Fan to participate in the graduation exam. Storage rings, protective astral tools, and even a lot of daily necessities. Lin Xia also told Lin Fan to find a safe place to stay and not go anywhere. As long as he came out alive, he would be guaranteed to succeed the throne. However, Yu Qingqing still seemed to be a little worried. When she saw Kong Qianqian not far away, she immediately called out, Qianqian, Lin Fan isn't as capable as you. This time, you have to take good care of him. After all, our prince's residence and your marshal's residence have already reached an engagement. In the future, you will still have to marry Lin Fan. After graduation, you will be engaged. He will be your future husband. You can't just ignore him. Kong Qianqian glanced at Lin Fan and then smiled at Yu Qingqing. Princess, please don't worry. I will take good care of Lin Fan. Good. With your words, I'm much more relieved. When it was finally time to enter, Lin Zhen finally bid farewell to his worried parents and entered the enclosure. After entering the enclosure, a layer of fog immediately separated the inside and outside of the enclosure. They couldn't see each other clearly. Lin Zhen came in with Kong Qianqian. After entering, before he could say anything, Hu Feng suddenly walked over. Qianqian, let's go train together. Kong Qianqian nodded and then turned to face Lin Zhen. She said faintly, Lin Fan, your parents asked me to take care of you. However, I feel that you are already an adult and don't need anyone to take care of you. If you don't dare to enter the forest to train, it's fine. There are so many people around the entrance. There shouldn't be any demonic beasts coming here. After speaking, Kong Qianqian took out a long sword and drew a circle around Lin Zhen. Stay in this circle and don't come out. If anyone dares to find trouble with you, just say that this circle was drawn by me. Then, no one will dare to provoke you. If you force yourself out of the circle and something happens, I won't care. I still have to go train and don't have time to take care of you." Kong Qianqian and Hu Feng put their swords back into their sheaths and left. Lin Jun lowered his head and looked at the circle on the ground. He actually felt that it was very funny. So childish. How can I have the patience to watch these children's tricks? Lin Jun smiled bitterly and was about to walk out of the circle. However, before he could walk out, Ziying happened to walk in front of him. Looking at the circle under Lin Jun's feet, Ziying revealed a faint smile. Chapter 1366. Faced with Ziying's mockery, Lin Jun, who was about to leave, stopped in his tracks. "Since someone wants to imprison me, then I might as well stay in this cell. It's dangerous outside, so I might as well wait here until the end of the test." Ziying, who had wanted to see how this youth would perform, had a trace of disappointment in her eyes. "Unfortunately, you only have that person's looks, but you're far from his charisma. Forget it. Since it's fate that brought us together, and I can't give this to him, then I'll give it to you. Take care." Ziying casually threw down a piece of paper, turned around, and left. She didn't look at Lin Jun again. Lin Jun took the piece of paper and realized that it was actually a move. It was a finger technique. There were many formulas, techniques, and methods on it. The complexity of it made Lin Jun gasp in amazement. This finger technique is quite interesting. The more Lin Jun read, the more surprised he became. This finger technique faintly had the aura of a sovereign battle technique. Moreover, the more Lin Jun read, the more he felt that this technique was very suitable for him to cultivate. The requirements for his body strength, the strength of his armor, it felt like it was tailor-made for him. However, there were still many things missing. The person who invented this technique clearly didn't have enough ability. He only comprehended a trace of the concept, but when it came to actual implementation, it didn't work at all. At best, this could only be considered a beginner-level sovereign battle technique. It was basically useless. Clearly, Ziying also felt that this thing was useful, but it wasn't perfect. She couldn't give it away. Since she had some fate with Lin Fan, she gave it to him casually. It was better than nothing. She probably didn't expect Lin Jun to truly comprehend anything. However, this unintentional gift gave Lin Jun a lot of help. Looking at Ziying's departing figure, Lin Jun's eyes flashed. Clearly, Ziying's identity wasn't simple. In the following days, Lin Jun actually sat cross-legged in the circle that Kong Qianqian drew. He took out many delicious foods that his parents brought and ate and drank heartily in this circle. News of this spread like wildfire, and Lin Fan was once again the target of ridicule. However, this matter couldn't last for too long. The students still had to enter the forest to obtain points. At first, there were still people who stayed at the entrance or passed by here from time to time. However, this Lin Fan was too thick-skinned. No matter how much people mocked him, he still did as he pleased. If he wasn't eating and drinking, he would be sleeping. Sometimes, he would use a stick to draw some unintelligible scribbles on the ground. It was really boring to look at him. Half a month later, all the people around him who were observing him had disappeared. No one was willing to continue watching him sleep. 2. In fact, he had been monitored the moment he entered this place. This method finally dispelled the suspicions of the people monitoring him. They also lost all their patience and left. Lin Jun stepped out of the circle and teleported. In the next second, Lin Jun appeared in the space of Wanhai Planet. Star Realm. Lin Jun had entered the early meteor realm during this period of time. Traveling through space wasn't a problem for him. He arrived in the sky, surrounded by the vast Andromeda Nebula. Unlike the Milky Way, the Andromeda Nebula was denser. There were stars everywhere, and the density was as high as the horizon. Lin Jun came here to sort out the insights he had gained from this new life. The ultimate goal of this life was to awaken the Chaos Green Lotus in his body. However, before the Green Lotus was awakened, Lin Jun wasn't really idle. Especially after he obtained a finger technique from Ziying, it helped Lin Jun find a direction. For half a month, Lin Jin had been thinking about how to use this technique, and it had basically taken shape. In the past, when I was thinking about the direction of sovereign battle techniques, I was too restricted to weapons. I didn't know that I could use powerful battle techniques without weapons. My body is strong, and it's a peerless weapon. Finger techniques are also a type of sovereign battle technique. He extended a finger, and it instantly turned into armor. Lin Jun didn't forget any of the battle techniques from his previous life. He could still use this technique with ease. His elemental enlightenment was also present. With a thought, all the elemental energy gathered to form the chaos chi at his fingertip. The sovereign battle techniques of the past are no longer suitable to be used without a spear. I still have the chaos chi that belongs to me, and I can create something that belongs to me alone. Master Lone Star Fishing Old Man's superimposed battle techniques can be combined with my finger techniques to form an unimaginable killing power. Although my realm is low now, and I can't use the true power of sovereign battle techniques, once this battle technique is formed, it's invincible. Lin Jun began to circulate the chaos chi and tried to use his finger techniques. He raised his hand, moved his finger, and attacked. A chaos chi shot out from his fingertip and then dissipated 3 meters away. It failed. It doesn't matter. No one can succeed on the first try. Failure is the mother of success. Again, this time he shot out 10 meters and hit a small meteorite in front of him. This meteorite would have been burned to ashes when it entered the atmosphere of planet Wanghai, but Lin Jun hit it, and a small crater appeared. I found the right direction to use my strength, but it's still not enough. When I first learned the sovereign battle technique, his spear technique was very particular about momentum. I don't want to walk the path of the sovereign battle technique, but I have my own martial intent. It's invincible. Integrating the invincible martial intent into his technique, Lin Jun failed again and again. He tried again and again, and he didn't get tired of it. The twin suns of planet Wanghai rose from the east and set in the west back and forth. Lin Jun was in the sky, bathing in the sunlight and cultivating. The twin suns, one big and one small, converge at the end of every month. On this day, Lin Jun sat cross-legged in the void, casting 2 shadows on his left and right. As the first ray of sunlight fell on his body, Lin Jun opened his mouth and gently breathed in. The origin energy of heaven and earth entered his stomach. Lin Jun fiercely opened his eyes. After cultivating in the sky for over 10 days, his cultivation had also reached the peak of the meteor stage. His eyes opened. With the eye of delusion, he looked directly at a giant meteorite 100 miles away. He lifted a finger, and a speck of starlight converged on it. Chaos Tribulation Finger. Meteor break. With a point of his finger, the chaotic energy formed a dark golden light that shot out at the speed of light. The giant meteorite comparable to a comet was smashed into powder by Lin Jun's finger. Success. Lin Jun let out a long breath. The air turned into an arrow that didn't dissipate for a long time. With the strength of the meteor stage combined with double stacking, I was able to smash apart a small star 100 miles away. This power is comparable to a planet realm master. This is the might of a sovereign battle technique. Moreover, the mysteries of a sovereign battle technique are far more profound than this. I still need to slowly cultivate and perfect it. Chapter 1367. Lin Jun was in a good mood. After being reborn, he actually had the opportunity to comprehend this finger technique. Although it wasn't completely created by him, it was definitely a unique finger technique in the entire universe. It was also a godly technique when fighting. This battle technique was incomprehensible even in the entire primordial realm, let alone in the new territories. After learning the chaotic calamity finger, Lin Jun looked at the time and realized that he had been in the sky for half a month. The graduation exam was about to end. Lin Jun cursed in his heart. He had completely forgotten about the time while cultivating and had actually delayed this matter. With a thought, Lin Jun returned to the forest at the back of Chuidra Peak. He had come back in a hurry, so his landing point was slightly off. When he landed, he was surrounded by a dilapidated forest where a fierce battle was taking place. A graceful figure was currently being besieged by several terrifying demonic beasts. It was Ziying. Beside Ziying were 5 gigantic demonic beasts. They were the 5 poisonous beasts. There was a ghost-faced spider that was as tall as a person, a golden flower poisonous python that was as thick as a water bucket, a red turtle poisonous scorpion that weighed 250 kilograms, a blue-eye toad that was as big as a small car, and a 10-meter-long iron centipede. These 5 poisonous beasts had extremely bright colors. It was obvious that they were highly poisonous. As they moved, the stench of blood whistled and the vegetation withered. Their speed was unbelievably fast. More importantly, there were specks of starlight flickering on the top of each monster's head. They were actually Star Realm beasts. Normally, such beasts wouldn't appear on Emerald Drop Peak. The strongest student here was only at the Warlord Realm. It would be a hellish challenge if a Warlord Realm beast appeared. Star Realm beasts were simply impossible. This wasn't a trial. This was murder. Furthermore, the 5 beasts cooperated well. They advanced and retreated according to plan. The faint sound of a flute could be heard from the surrounding forest. Clearly, they weren't ordinary beasts. They were being controlled. The purpose of these beasts was clear. They wanted to kill Ziying in the middle. A large number of beast corpses had already fallen beside Ziying. They were all poisonous beasts, but she couldn't deal with these 5 poison kings. Ziying's towering chest rose and fell rapidly. It was obvious that she couldn't hold on any longer. Lin Jun narrowed his eyes. Someone was trying to harm Ziying. If it was in the past, Lin Jun might not necessarily care. But since he owed the other party a favor, Lin Jun couldn't just stand by and watch. He walked out of the forest and entered the battlefield filled with poisonous fog. Ziying, who was desperately resisting, saw Lin Jun and her expression changed. She shouted loudly, "Why are you here? Hurry up and leave, or you'll lose your life too." Lin Jun said calmly, "It's not my style to leave someone in the lurch." "Idiot, is this something you can save? If you have the chance, bring me a message to the Andromeda Nebula and ask the royal family to give up their power to the Lin family. Otherwise, there will be a disaster." Lin Jun's expression turned even colder. "My surname is Lin. What kind of Lin family is that? You're just a vassal of the Lin family in name. Hurry up and get lost." Suddenly, a string of hurried flute sounds came from the forest. The armored centipede that was about to attack Ziying suddenly turned around and pounced straight at Lin Jun. When it opened its bloody mouth, it could easily tear a person into pieces. Ziying tried her best to save him, but the golden flower venomous python suddenly found an opportunity and swept her leg, causing her to stagger and fall to the ground. She couldn't even protect herself. Ziying couldn't help but close her eyes. It was over. This boy who looked like Lin Jun was still dead in the end. He died because of his ignorance. Forget it. It wasn't him after all. The Lin family he left behind was no longer the warm little family of the past. Just as she was prepared to die, she suddenly heard an explosion in the distance. She opened her eyes and saw that the armored centipede that was pouncing at Lin Jun had been blasted to pieces by some unknown force. Not even a piece of flesh was left. Only a faint mist of blood floated in the air, proving that this monster had once existed. Then, a series of dazzling flashes of light appeared. The golden flower venomous python, venomous scorpion, toad, and spider all turned to dust. Amidst the mist of blood, she vaguely saw a beam of light break through the air and enter the forest in the distance. In the forest, a scream came, and the flute music stopped abruptly. Obviously, the person controlling it in the dark had also been killed. Ziying's face was full of disbelief. She didn't expect that in this small place like Planet Wanghai, there would be such an expert who could easily kill 5-star realm venomous creatures and the hidden controller. What was even more ridiculous was that she didn't even see who had done it. That wasn't right. Although the young man, Lin Fan, stood there without moving, he raised a finger and pointed in the direction of the forest. Then, he slowly withdrew his finger. The young man turned around and smiled at Ziying's pretty face. "I'm very grateful for the secret technique that you gave me. It allowed me to comprehend it. This technique is really useful. In a place like this, I can kill any god or Buddha that stand in my way. Ziying rubbed her eyes. She had originally suspected that Lin Fan was pretending to be weak, but now, she didn't even have that suspicion. If you're acting, at least pretend to be real. Who are you trying to fool by using the technique I taught you? Ziying knew what that technique was all about. It hadn't been perfected, nor had it taken shape. It could only be considered a concept. How could you cultivate it in just a few days? Even a ruler might not be able to do it. Ziying, who had a powerful background, didn't believe him at all. With the danger gone, she stood up and walked over to Lin Jun. She looked around and said, "Come out. Let me see who you are." Lin Jun was puzzled. "Who are you calling?" "The person protecting you in secret." "What kind of expert is protecting you?" "He's at least at the planet realm, right? Or maybe the star realm. Or is he at the black hole realm?" Lin Jun's face turned cold. "No one is protecting me, believe it or not." With that, Lin Jun walked over and collected a few things from the blood mist. Ziying looked and saw that there were still remnants. The person who had attacked him in secret had left something behind. The python's tongue, the spider's poisonous fangs, the scorpion's tail. There was a little of each of the 5 poisons. Was this for Lin Jun to prepare for the graduation exam? That was really thoughtful. At this point, Ziying didn't say much to Lin Jun. Since the person hiding in secret wasn't willing to show himself, she would just observe slowly. But Planet Wanghai was more dangerous than she had imagined. It seemed that her identity had been exposed, and someone had attacked her in secret. The two of them walked out of the depths of the forest, one in front and one behind. As soon as they walked out, they saw torches all over the mountains sweeping toward them. They were all looking for Lin Fan, and they were loudly calling his name. "Young Prince, where are you?" "Lin Fan, young prince. Say something if you can hear me." "Fan, it's your mother. Hurry up and answer your mother." Ziying stood behind Lin Fan and smiled. "Your family really dotes on you. They sent such a powerful person to protect you in secret, and you still don't feel at ease. When the time comes, you come looking for me. You're really a young master." Lin Jun suddenly turned around. "If you don't shut up, I'll sell you back to the slave market." Ziying suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. A memory of the past came to her mind. She suddenly had a feeling that this Lin Fan had seen through her identity. Chapter 1368. "Mother, I'm here." Lin Jun walked out of the forest. In this life, the only people he cared about the most were his parents, Lin Xia and Yu Qingqing. Although they were only temporary parents in this life, they had given him all their love. Lin Jun couldn't let them down. Lin Jun couldn't bear to see Yu Qingqing anxious, so he walked out. "Fan, son, you're finally back." Yu Qingqing ran over excitedly and hugged Lin Fan, calling him her darling. This made Lin Jun feel extremely awkward. Kong Qianqian was beside his mother. Yu Qingqing looked at Kong Qianqian and couldn't help but complain, "Qianqian, why didn't you take good care of Lin Fan? He almost didn't make it out of there." Kong Qianqian looked at Lin Jun with a hint of mockery. "I'll take good care of him in the future." Everyone returned. The second day after they returned home, rumors began to spread in the capital. First of all, some people questioned the poisonous parts Lin Jun brought out. After investigation, those things were only possessed by Star Realm demonic beasts. There were no Star Realm demonic beasts in the hunting grounds. Then, some people said that Lin Fan's parents spoiled him too much, causing him to be ignorant and incompetent. This time, Ziying from the Fairy Goddess Empire must have helped him cheat. Then, some people said that Lin Jun's graduation exam results didn't count. They even said that he didn't have the qualifications to inherit the throne. When these words reached Lin Jun's ears, he only smiled. Someone was trying to build momentum, and their goal was to take the throne. Lin Jun didn't care, but his family couldn't. Lin Xia and Yu Qingqing were a little anxious. They needed a marriage alliance to strengthen their position. Protecting Lin Fan was the most important thing. It seemed impossible for him to live an ordinary life. The marriage alliance with the Prime Minister's residence was the best opportunity. Lin Xia hurried to the Prime Minister's residence, hoping to get engaged. Fortunately, Prime Minister Kong Fong did not refuse. Instead, he agreed to hold the engagement ceremony on the 10th day. The news quickly spread in the capital. Some people who looked down on the Wang Fu immediately fell over like grass on the top of the wall. The Wang Fu's side instantly exploded. Since the prime minister had agreed to the marriage, then that idiot little Prince Lin Fan would probably have no problem inheriting the title of prince equal to the emperor. Preparations were made in the prince's mansion, decorating the streets with lanterns and decorations. The little prince's engagement was a major event that had to be arranged in a grand manner. Soon, there was news that His Majesty would personally attend the engagement ceremony, which added a lot of popularity to this place. Everyone's face was filled with joy as they waited for the engagement banquet that would be held 10 days later. In the palace, Lin Zhigao was listening to the report. "We failed. Zi Ying has come out of the valley. Those poisonous creatures were all killed, and the summoner who was hired with a lot of money also died an unnatural death. Only a little bit of blood was left, and after testing, it was confirmed that it was that person. Lin Fan went missing for a while and finally came out with Zi Ying. The remains of the poisonous creatures that he took out should have come from Zi Ying." Lin Zhigao frowned as he read the news one by one on his desk. This matter made him somewhat unable to see through. Lin Zhigao had basically investigated Zi Ying's background. According to the feedback from the dimensional universe, Emperor Zi Qinxia had gone missing more than a month ago. It was during that time that Zi Ying had come here. The person who gave Lin Zhigao the feedback was a prime minister from the Fairy Empire. This person was called Lin Yunfei, and he was also Lin Zhigao's great-uncle. Strictly speaking, Lin Zhigao was a descendant of Lin An's branch, while Lin Yunfei was a descendant of Lin Ping's branch. Lin Yunfei told Lin Zhigao that Zi Ying was the form that Zi Qinxia took after cultivating a technique that allowed her to regain her youth. If Zi Ying could successfully grow up, then she could become a divine king in the future. To the people of the new territories, becoming a divine king was an unattainable title. Lin Yunfei did not want Zi Qinxia to succeed. If Zi Qinxia died, then Lin Yunfei could inherit the Fairy Empire in the name of the Lin family and become the ruler of the empire. Lin Yunfei meant that as long as Lin Zhigao prevented Zi Ying from leaving planet Wanghai, then he would take over the throne in the future and let Lin Zhigao become the overlord of this galaxy, just like the divine ancestor Lin Jun, the Sun Overlord. To achieve this goal, Lin Zhigao had paid a huge price. He had hired an interstellar pirate to bring 5-star realm poisonous creatures to Emerald Peak Valley to ambush him. He originally had 2 targets. One was Zi Ying, and the other was Lin Fan. As the descendant of the emperor, Lin Fan was the only person who could threaten his throne. Moreover, he could not see through Lin Fan. He always felt that leaving him alive would be a hidden danger, so he wanted to get rid of him as well. However, something had gone wrong. The meteor stage manipulator and the 5 poisonous creatures had been killed by someone. It was very likely that Zi Ying had someone protecting her from behind. Moreover, Lin Fan had mysteriously disappeared before. All of this made him feel that things were not under his control. "Your Majesty, I think we should follow the original plan. After all, Lin Fan's engagement is coming soon. However, we may not have enough power at the moment," his confidant suggested. Lin Zhigao nodded slightly. This was what he was most worried about. "It seems that we can only ask for help. I will inform Granduncle immediately. We need help here." Lin Zhigao's face showed a ruthless expression. Since there are some things that cannot be seen through, then there is no need to. After all, this is the new territories. Is the Lin family's world. As long as the Lin family is determined to do something, no one can stop them. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. The engagement ceremony in Hua was more grand than the wedding ceremonies in other places. On the contrary, the wedding ceremony was more low-key. Relatives and friends only congratulated them slightly before announcing the marriage. The engagement ceremony was the most grand. A group of knights made up of war gods rode on fiery red Fergana horses. They wore flame-like red armor and huge red cloaks. There was a golden phoenix feather on their heads. They held 7-meter-long dragon spears and pointed them at the sky. They were valiant as they passed through the streets. This was the Royal Guard of Honor. Now, The emperor's equal had borrowed it. After the group of knights, two winged white horses pulled a gorgeous carriage. All kinds of gems were hung in front of the carriage. It was extremely magnificent. The coachman swung the dragon tendon whip and made a sound in the air. Then, the drum team behind began to play music. On the huge flatbed carriage, the band performed to their heart's content. In the sky, there were spirit readers flying on flying swords. They held long ribbons in their hands. It was like a rainbow crossing the sky. It was clearly visible from hundreds of miles away. Kong Qianqian had already boarded the carriage and followed the group to the emperor's equal's palace. There were some children running behind the carriage. Some people specially threw wedding candies and even red packets. This was a grand event in the capital. Countless people went to the emperor's palace to watch the ceremony and witness this happy moment. Chapter 1369. The procession finally arrived at the entrance of the mansion. The music stopped, and the Kong family members got off the carriage. Apart from Kong Qianqian, the current prime minister, Kong Fong, also came. The emperor's equal, Wang Lin, was already standing on the steps, greeting Kong Fong. "Aha, Prime Minister Kong, you look so energetic today. Is this what they mean when they say that people are in high spirits during happy events?" Kong Fong replied cheerfully, "Indeed, there's indeed a joyous event today. Your Highness will be able to witness it with your own eyes later." "Of course, we will witness it together." Lin Xia happily watched Kong Qianqian get off the carriage. She had already completely treated Kong Qianqian as her daughter-in-law. Kong Qianqian wore a moon-white gauze dress today. She was beautiful and elegant. As she walked up the steps, she complimented the handsome Lin Fan, who was standing beside Lin Xia. They were a perfect match. The procession moved forward and entered the mansion's courtyard. Lin Xia had originally planned to temporarily close the gates to give the people inside a relatively quiet environment, but Kong Fong stopped her. "There is no need to close the gates. So many people are here today to watch the ceremony. This wonderful show cannot be without an audience." After saying that, he turned to the crowd in front of the gate and said, "Does everyone want to watch today's show?" "Yes." "Then open the gates as wide as possible and let everyone in. His Majesty will be here soon." The people cheered loudly and swarmed in. Soon, the mansion's courtyard was filled to the brim, leaving only the central area. Lin Xia frowned slightly. This Kong Fong was not treating himself as an outsider. After all, this was the mansion. He did not even ask for His Highness's opinion. However, today was a joyous day, so Lin Xia could not say much. She forced a smile. If there were more people, then so be it. It was a good thing anyway, and she was not afraid of people watching. The drum band was in place and began to play a cheerful tune. After some tense preparations, the host stepped onto the stage. The person in charge of hosting this time was the Vice Dean of Emerald Peak's Civil and Martial Arts Academy. Lin Fan's graduation exam results had not been announced yet. After all, Lin Fan had taken out the corpse of a Star Realm beast. It should not have belonged to a beast in the enclosure. So, some people questioned Lin Fan's results. Lin Xia actually didn't believe that her son could kill a Star Realm demonic beast. So she secretly communicated with the vice principal, hoping that he could announce Lin Fan's results as valid. That way, her son could be considered to have successfully graduated. Last night, Lin Xia had even given the vice president a lot of money, and the vice president had agreed. Furthermore, he was going to be the host for the day. This made Lin Xia feel relieved. The vice president stepped onto the stage, but before he could say anything, more spectators arrived. "Marshal Hu Zheng has arrived." Lin Xia hurriedly went to welcome them. The crowd parted as Hu Zheng brought his son, Hu Feng, and his iron-blooded personal guards in. However, these people were armed with swords and sabers. They were dressed in martial attire and walked in with murderous intent. Only Hu Feng, this youth, was still dressed normally. Lin Xia couldn't help but frown, but she still greeted him out of courtesy. "Marshal Hu, you're late today. I'll have to punish you with a few drinks later." "Ha, Your Highness, this Hu has indeed come a little late. It's just that His Majesty summoned me for a temporary mission. I still have to carry out the mission in a while, so I came dressed like this. Please forgive me, Your Highness." Lin Xiao laughed dryly. Since it was a mission from His Majesty, she couldn't blame him. Hu Zheng brought his personal guards to sit in the audience seats. The fully armed soldiers immediately made this engagement ceremony a lot more depressing. The cheerful atmosphere from before had somewhat disappeared. The vice president coughed to attract everyone's attention. Everyone, today is a good day. The crowd stopped their chatter and turned their gazes to the stage. The vice president stood in the middle. On his left was Lin Fan, who was wearing a black suit, and on his right was Kong Chantian, who was wearing a white gauze dress. Ardahua was founded on martial prowess. Back then, His Majesty and the Emperor equal to one fought in the north and south. Only with a full army did he conquer Ardahua's vast territory. The crowd listened solemnly. However, they felt that the vice president's topic was a little heavy. More than 100 years have passed. His Majesty is still as valiant as ever. However, the Emperor equal to one is long gone. Today, the Wang residence has already passed down its fourth generation. The one standing beside me is the fourth generation successor of the Wang residence. He is the son of the Emperor equal to one, Lin Fan. He is also the young prince, Lin Fan. The crowd's gazes fell on Lin Fan. There were all kinds of expressions. Some were envious, and some were disdainful. Back then, His Majesty had promised that the Emperor equal to one would continue for 3 generations. When it came to the 4th generation, if he wasn't proficient in both civil and martial arts, he wouldn't be able to continue inheriting the throne. There is a standard for civil and martial arts. Lin Fan is also a student of our Emerald Peak Civil and Martial Arts Academy. The standard for success is the results of the graduation exam. As everyone knows, the graduation exam ended 10 days ago. So, how is our student Lin Fan's graduation result? Let me announce it to everyone. Lin Xia smiled slightly. His son would definitely pass smoothly. Oh, also, our female lead today is the beautiful Miss Kong Chantian. She's also a student of our academy. Let me announce her results first. The crowd's gazes fell on Kong Chantian again. Kong Chantian is the beloved daughter of the current Prime Minister. She is an outstanding student of our academy. I am very honored to announce that Kong Chantian has obtained 2nd place in the entire academy in this graduation exam. She is also the first silver level spirit reader in our academy in this batch of students. Wow! There was a burst of exclamations from below. Many people didn't expect such a beautiful girl to have such outstanding results. In this era where everyone was proud of cultivation, such a person would naturally be respected and welcomed. There was a burst of enthusiastic applause. Some people even shouted out loud for their goddess Kong Chantian. Kong Chantian also smiled and returned the greetings. She was natural and graceful. At this moment, someone shouted loudly, "Vice Principal, since Kong Chantian has obtained 2nd place, then the 1st place must be the young Prince Lin Fan. Otherwise, how can he be worthy of marrying Miss Kong? Isn't that right, everyone?" Yes. The crowd cheered like a tide. Lin Xiao was a little uneasy. He had only agreed with the vice principal to let Lin Fan graduate. Why did this have to happen? Wasn't this putting Lin Fan on the fire? However, he couldn't say anything now. He only hoped that this segment would end quickly and get to the main topic. The vice principal smiled. Everyone is also very curious about who the 1st place is, right? Then I will announce it here. His gaze swept across the crowd. Suddenly, he said loudly, "The 1st place of this academy's graduation exam is the son of our current Grand Marshal, Hu Zheng, Hu Feng. He is also the 1st student in our academy to become a war god in this batch of students." Following the vice principal's announcement, Hu Feng stood up and cupped his fist to the people around him with a face full of smiles. He had already advanced to the war god realm yesterday. He was in high spirits at a young age. This should have been something to celebrate, but the crowd was suddenly silent. So, the 1st place wasn't Lin Fan. Today's scene seemed a little strange. Chapter 1370. Normally, the vice principal would announce that Lin Fan had won 1st place, and everyone would cheer and congratulate him, saying things like they were a match made in heaven, and everyone would be happy. However, No one expected such a huge reversal. First place was actually Hu Feng. Then what was Lin Fan's rank? Hu Feng was first, Kong Qianqian was second, and even if Lin Fan was third, he would still be inferior to Kong Qianqian. And what if he wasn't third? The crowd paused for a moment, and then a huge buzz broke out. Some people thought that the vice principal was an idiot, and that his words were too unprofessional. Some people thought that Lin Fan wasn't good enough for Kong Qianqian, and wondered what his rank was this time. Some people even shouted, "Vice Principal, everyone is curious about Lin Fan's results. Why don't you just announce it? I don't think he will be too far behind Miss Qianqian." Lin Xiaolin's face was ashen, and she blamed the vice principal for being so insensible. She hoped that he would announce it quickly, and then move on to the next item. The vice principal laughed and said, Okay, I'll announce it now. This time, when the young prince entered the enclosure, Miss Kong Qianqian drew a circle for him at the entrance to protect his safety. Then, the young prince stayed in the circle and ate and drank for half a month. There was a huge buzz below the stage, and almost everyone realized that something was wrong. Was the vice principal here to preside? It seemed like he was here to cause trouble. Lin Xiaolin also had a bad feeling, but she still had a glimmer of hope that the vice principal would say something good at the end and turn the situation around. After all, he had received money. Then, for half a month, the young prince probably felt that it wasn't safe there, so he ran away. No one knew where he hid, and he never appeared again. It was only when it was about to end that people realized that he had appeared together with Miss Ziying. I personally think that since the young prince wants to be engaged to Miss Kong Qianqian, he should know how to avoid suspicion. After all, Miss Kong hasn't married you yet. Isn't that disrespectful? Many people didn't know who Ziying was, and after hearing the vice principal's words, the image of Lin Fan as a scumbag immediately came alive. One side was asking to be married, the other side was seducing. Such a scumbag at such a young age. One really couldn't judge a book by its cover. Then what about his final result? Someone shouted angrily. Results. The young prince probably thinks we're all idiots, so he took out a few Star Realm demon beast corpses and said he killed them. However, everyone should know that the strongest demon beast we put into the enclosure was only at the war god level. I'd like to ask the young prince, where did you get these Star Realm demon beast corpses? The associate dean's voice was incredibly stern when he said the last sentence, and he faced Lin Zhen directly. Lin Zhen smiled faintly and didn't answer. But in the eyes of the crowd, this was undoubtedly a sign of guilt. Loud boos rang out. Many people had already begun to curse Lin Fan for being a scum. They said that he was ignorant and incompetent, and that he was not worthy of Kong Qianqian. He did not deserve to graduate, and he did not even deserve to inherit the throne. Lin Xiaolin yelled at the vice principal, "What nonsense are you talking about? Don't forget." "Yes, I haven't forgotten." The vice president suddenly raised his hand and took out a bag from his hand. Then he threw it on the stage. Crash! A pile of crystal coins fell out of the bag. Crystal coins were the highest level of currency on Wanghai planet. One crystal coin was worth 1 million, and this bag was worth 100 million. Everyone, please take a look. This was given to me by the prince in private yesterday. He hopes that I can announce that his son has passed the graduation exam today. 100 million. This is truly a large sum, but I want to tell your highness that you found the wrong person. I'm not a snobbish person who only cares about money. I will never betray my conscience for money and take away your stinky money. I don't care. Your son is an idiot. He doesn't deserve to graduate from our J-Drop Peak Academy. His results are 0. With that, the vice principal kicked the bag of crystal coins off the stage. Lin Xiaolin was about to flip out when the vice principal opened his dimensional universe and directly released the video of their meeting yesterday and Lin Xiaolin giving the money. He had already prepared for this moment to release the video. Now that the evidence was conclusive, there was no doubt. Lin Xiaolin's face instantly turned pale. She didn't understand how things had suddenly turned out like this. The crowd below the stage was instantly agitated. Waves of cheers started under the guidance of some people. Down with Lin Xiaolin. What bullsh asterisk T king equal? Not a member of the Lin family is not a member of the Lin family. You don't know who you are just because you have the surname Lin. You don't deserve to have this surname. Also, find out who Ziying is. They are about to get engaged, and she can't wait to be the mistress. This kind of woman should be drowned in a pig's cage. Luckily, they haven't gotten engaged yet. Otherwise, Miss Kong would be in big trouble. Who do you think you are? The vice principal came to Kong Chantian's side and said agitatedly, Chantian, I watched you grow up. I can't bear to see you jump into the fire pit. That's why I said all this. As for whether you want to continue your engagement with Lin Fan, it's up to you. Kong Chantian had been standing there for a long time, and finally spoke. Looking at Lin Fa with a complicated gaze, Kong Chantian said, Lin Fan, I thought you were a good man who was worthy of being entrusted with my life. However, I was wrong about you. I'm very sorry for your feelings. I'd rather be alone for the rest of my life than to wallow in the mire with you. I'm sorry, Lin Fan. In the end, we are not fated to be together. With that, Kong Chantian wiped her tears and walked down the stage. She looked like she was disappointed and had nothing to live for. Her delicate appearance broke many people's hearts. At this moment, Hu Feng suddenly stood up and stopped Kong Chantian. Chantian, that scumbag can't give you happiness. However, I really like you. If you don't mind, I'm willing to marry you and treat you well for the rest of my life. Many people around them immediately cheered. They all said that the two of them were a match made in heaven. Kong Feng and Hu Jing also looked at them with a smile and didn't say a word. They looked completely affectionate. Kong Chantian blushed and hesitated for a long time. She let Hu Feng hold her hand. She struggled a few times before she stopped moving. Lin Xia was anxious and walked over angrily. What are you people doing? Don't you know that this is the Emperor's palace? Get out of here. At this moment, the Grand Marshal of the military, Hu Zheng, suddenly shouted. According to His Majesty's orders, the Emperor's palace did not teach his son well. He deceived his superiors and his subordinates, and even tried to bribe the examiner. This is a disgrace to the Lin family's reputation. From today onwards, you will be stripped of your position as the Emperor. Your family will be thrown into prison for investigation. Nonsense. You're faking an imperial edict. I don't believe it. Lin Xia shouted. His Majesty has arrived. With a loud voice, the current emperor, Lin Zhigao, appeared. The imperial guards filed in. Lin Zhigao arrived on a dragon carriage, and everyone knelt down. Lin Zhigao looked down from above and said loudly, I already know everything. Lin Xia, you have disappointed me. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Where is Hu Zheng? I'm here. Hu Zheng, who was dressed in martial attire, stood up. Lead your troops and arrest everyone in the Emperor's palace. Search and confiscate their property. If anyone resists, kill them without mercy. Yes, Your Majesty. The soldiers, who had been waiting for a long time, drew their swords in an orderly manner. Chapter 1371. Following Lin Zhigao's order, the soldiers immediately unsheathed their swords. These soldiers were Hu Zheng's personal guards and the Emperor's imperial guards. The ordinary soldiers were all at the war god level, and the captains were all Star Realm masters. They could kill without batting an eye. It seemed that the Emperor's equal mansion was in trouble today. Lin Xiao's hands and feet turned cold. He never thought that things would turn out like this. His opponent clearly didn't want to give him any chance to turn the situation around. The personal guards and imperial guards were mobilized, along with the Emperor, the Prime Minister, the Grand Marshal, and the Vice Principal of the Academy. With all these important people present, how could he turn the situation around? After a long while, Lin Xiao's lips trembled as he looked at Lin Zhigao. Your Majesty, this was all part of your plan. Lin Zhigao's face was as cold as ice. There was no plan. Evil deeds are doomed to destruction. Lin Xia, this is what you deserve. But I just wanted my son to pass the graduation exam. You deserve it. Lin Xia, don't try to argue. Lin Xia turned to Kong Feng. Prime Minister, did you agree to my request on purpose? Kong Feng said righteously, these years, your prince's mansion has been doing well. If you didn't choose to do it today, how could we catch all of you in one fell swoop? Your Highness, if you want to blame someone, blame yourself for giving birth to such a disappointing son. The surrounding people didn't dare to say anything. This clearly involved a power struggle. But now, it seemed that the emperor's mansion deserved it. They hadn't wronged him. In particular, the emperor's mansion didn't have the surname Lin, but they were given the surname Lin. This was something that many people envied. The people of the emperor's mansion nervously shrank to the center of the stage. They were surrounded by soldiers who could pounce on them at any time. If Lin Fan and the others didn't surrender, a massacre would begin. Lin Jun took a deep breath. Just as he was about to speak, someone suddenly walked in from outside the mansion. "Stop!" The voice was crisp, like an oriole flying out of a valley. It was obvious that it was a beauty. People turned around and saw Ziying walk in. Lin Jigao chuckled. "Princess Ziying, what are you doing here? Go back quickly." Ziying's face was cold. "Lin Jigao, since you know that I am a princess, then you should know that the entire Andromeda Nebula belongs to the Andromeda Empire and is under the jurisdiction of Her Majesty, Zi Qianxia. Although planet Wanghai is located in a remote corner, it will be under the control of the Empire sooner or later. If you order the troops to withdraw now, pardon the Imperial residence, and let Lin Jun pass the graduation exam, when the Empire comes, I will put in a few good words for you and let you be a lord." After she finished speaking, Ziying placed her hands behind her back. Although she was young, she had a powerful aura. Lin Ji glanced at Ziying a few times at the foot of the mountain and suddenly burst into laughter. "Ha ha! I gave you some face, and you really dared to open a dye house." Lin Jigao flung the cloak behind him and stood up. "The Fairy Empress is indeed Zi Qianxia, but as everyone knows, Zi Qianxia has never been married. You came to planet Wanghai in the name of the Fairy Empress Princess. I also want to know, where did you come from?" Ziying was speechless for a moment. Her identity as a princess was naturally fake. Her real identity was actually the Fairy Empress. However, because she cultivated a special technique, she returned to her teenage years. Although she could still improve in the future, in the eyes of others, she was nothing more than a little girl. Moreover, her strength had shrunk rapidly. Originally, she chose to cultivate on planet Wanghai because it was remote and there were few strong people, so no one could threaten her. However, she did not expect that this place was not peaceful either. Did you not receive any notice from the Fairy Empress?" Ziying questioned Lin Jigao. When she came, she had arranged for her confidant to inform them. Otherwise, why would she appear as a princess of the Fairy Empress? Lin Jigao laughed coldly. "Of course I received the notice. The notice was to be wary of a liar like you." "Lin Jigao, how dare you?" Ziying was furious. She did not expect Lin Jigao to go against her words and lie through his teeth. "I think you are the one who has the guts. How dare you act so arrogantly in front of the Lin family? Even if Zi Qianxia came personally, she would not dare to touch a single finger of the Lin family, let alone a princess." Lin Jigao was much more arrogant than Ziying. Ziying was speechless again. She had no intention of staying in power. Sooner or later, she planned to let the Lin family rule the world. However, she did not expect Lin Jun's descendant to be so arrogant. "Ha! You have nothing to say now, right? Today, it is one thing to deal with the prince's mansion. It is another thing to lure you into a trap. Since it has come to this, it is time to catch you all in one fell swoop." As soon as Lin Jigao finished speaking, someone could not hold it in anymore. Hu Feng and Kong Qianqian. They were the first and second in the academy. Now that they were famous in front of everyone, they naturally wanted to be more famous. This Ziying was so beautiful that Kong Qianqian was jealous. Now that she had nowhere to run, she wanted to show off her skills. "Your Majesty, why waste your breath on this little girl? Let's capture her for you." After saying that, Hu Feng and Kong Qianqian took the initiative to attack Ziying. The energy in Hu Feng's dantian exploded, revealing the power of a god of war. Ziying stepped on a flying shuttle and flew in the air like a fairy, revealing the power of a silver psychic master. When the two of them attacked, many people around them cheered. They were all students of the academy. Since they were the first and second in the academy, it would be easy for them to take down an unknown person like Ziying. However, a scene that no one could have imagined happened. Ziying looked annoyed. Looking at Hu Feng and Kong Qianqian, who were rushing toward her, she was like an elephant that saw ants bearing their fangs and claws. She raised one hand and suddenly slapped horizontally. Get lost! Boom! Hu Feng and Kong Qianqian were sent flying in the air and directly hit the flower wall in the distance. Blood splattered everywhere and dust flew. The two of them fell to the ground in a sorry state. However, their eyes were filled with disbelief. They looked at Ziying as if they had just seen a ghost. They could not believe that the two of them could not even block a single attack from Ziying. They had been swatted away like flies. Ziying's cold gaze landed on the two of them. Clowns should have the self-awareness of clowns. Since 5,000 years ago, I did not care to look at trash like the two of you seriously. As she spoke, she glanced at Lin Fan, who was standing calmly on the stage, as if none of this had anything to do with him. Looking at Lin Fan's expression, Ziying's heart was filled with bitterness. She then said to Kong Qianqian, "Woman, you're the stupidest person I've ever met in my entire life. You may never know what a great opportunity was placed right in front of you, but it's a pity that you've ruined it with your own hands. Since you've chosen that idiot Hu Feng, then the both of you shall live and die together. That man, you'll never be worthy of him."